the Bible. Is it hard to understand?
When it comes to reading the Bible, the first thing that comes to mind is the fact that this is the Word of God.
The seals have been broken, and the truth is here.
And when we go throughout the scriptures, when we go throughout extra biblical records, we find that the language that God employed, that He used to create the heavens and the earth, was the Hebrew language.
Christ said, I came for the lost sheep of the house of Israel. But yet no one, no religious leader, no religious church out there anywhere can now identify the 12 tribes of Israel. Can we? God is quite simple, but it seems as if man makes understanding Him hard.
What are those mysteries?
The truth of your book and the truth will make you free. The Hebrew and Bible Academy, you're invited. Shalom, shalom.
The East is where we're from.
Come on, hit the like button. Come on, we do have, we have a good program in store for you all. Come on in.
In 721 BC, the Assyrian king, he took us down, we fell. With a great escape, we went through the Euphrates. The Lord held the water still. To a land where no mankind dwelt, we went. The 12 tribes of Israel. That's who we be. Manasseh, the Cubans. We from Puerto Rico, and Valley from the Isles of Hawaii. The Lord is calling back Israel. Zebulon from Panama, Gad, the North American Indians. Simeon, the Dominicans. Our highest gathering Israel. The Arabs and Africans told us at gunpoint to gather our wives and children, then sold us. In the belly of these great ships we traveled in fear. By the rivers of Babylon we found our brothers here. A higher gatherers in Colombia, Reuben from Australia, Issachar, the Mexicans. A highest gathering the Negroes, Benjamin the West Indians, Levi, the Haitians. A highest gathering Israel.
Shalom, come on in, my brothers and sisters. Boy, do we have a broadcast this evening. Oh, yeah.
Asher in Colombia, Reuben from Australia, Issachar, the Mexicans. That's who we be. Judah, the Negroes, Benjamin, the West Indians, Levi, the Haitians. Manasseh, the Cubans,
Yeah.
from Puerto Rico, Nepali, from the Isles of Hawaii. The Lord is
Our
calling
family.
back Israel. Zebulon from Panama, Gad, the North American Indians, Simeon, the Dominicans. Our highest gathering Israel.
That's right, brothers and sisters. The Most High's gather in Israel. I'm Elder Ricard of the Gathering of Christ Church here live with Elder Lawyer, and we have a lot to talk about this evening before I bring in Elder Lawyer. Here's a good question, and I thought we would put it out there for this broadcast, especially in the midst of the earth spearheaded by America celebrating a holiday. Okay? A holiday in honor of Dr. Martin Luther King. Right? It seemed as if America and the world powers would like us to remember Martin Luther King a particular way. A way in which the world powers who have oppressed us can benefit. But there's a lot, brothers and sisters, that most of us don't know about Martin Luther King. And I hope to share that tonight to really give you some insight prophetically to what Christ and the disciples were talking about concerning prophets, leaders, which leads to a question for all of us. Do we really appreciate the sacrifice of leaders? Do we really? Do we really know what leaders go through or have gone through? How much they sacrifice of themselves and their family for the sake of others? How by putting your life on the line, not that leaders should, I'm going to tell you, when you go into the Bible, there's very little scenarios when it comes to leaders who are looking for fanfare or appreciation outside of the mission in of itself. Let me make that clear. Okay? The majority of leaders in the earth throughout time was born to do so. They were sent with a mission. Okay? Circumstances led them into a position to say, we're not going to wait for someone else to take a stand or make a mark. But usually, the leaders, after giving so much, are usually sacrificed, killed off, forgotten about. And it's as if the cause, which was that person's life, meant nothing. Why? Because the people, the generation subsequent or after that leader, didn't uphold that person's memory through action, through showing morality or instilling a cause to make sure that that man's sacrifice would never be forgotten. So that leads us to this question. Do we appreciate our leaders' sacrifice, starting with Christ? After everything he's given for us, an example, leaving wisdom on how to interact one with another, just that alone. And the fact that he was willing to give his life so that we can have another opportunity. What have we done with that? It's one thing to say, I believe in Jesus. I believe in Christ. But it's a whole nother thing when it comes to appreciating his sacrifice. Living a life so that when he looked down on us, he'll say, you know what? That's a son. That's a daughter who appreciated what I did for them. What I've done for them. In our lives, we show the appreciation. So what we're going to do today, I'm going to show you a few videos. And listen, it's just a good question out there. Why did Martin Luther King die? Why did he sacrifice so much? Is this the world Martin Luther King intended for the people he took a bullet for? What are our people showing in appreciation for him sacrificing his life for the embetterment, not of all people, but for black people? What about Martin? Martin Luther King? What about Malcolm X? What did Malcolm X sacrifice for? Leave his family early. Was not able to see his daughters grow into full, beautiful black women. He felt the cause was more important than raising his own children, thinking that sacrifice would be appreciated with us as a people continuing the fight. I'm just speaking of us as a people, as a nation. Have we disrespected the sacrifice that leaders put in place to give us a chance for a better life? Do we appreciate our leaders' sacrifice? That's enough for the monologue. Elder Lawyer. Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir. Shalom.
Shalom. I just did a quick monologue. I need you to get about the testator real quick out of the New Testament, because it seems as if we as a people in general become so selfish and or ungrateful. And it's not until someone is taken away that we begin to reflect back on the impact they had on our lives. And even the Bible speaks of this. Think about this. There's no greater friend to walk with on earth out of all friends than being able to walk with Jesus Christ or Yeshua. Think about the people who walked with him during that time and was immediately impacted by the healings, the wisdom, the showing forth a sacrifice of himself for everyone else. And that still wasn't enough. And sometimes when you reflect back at it and you look at it, was like, and I look at it and say, all of these people who knew this was a good man, there was always a segment of the population seeing him as a problem. There would always be a segment of the population who would hate that man's guts, but would never step in his shoes to do what he's doing. Christ was a friend. People can say what they want to say about our leaders, Nat Turner, Martin Luther King. Even in his era, he was a friend. Even while making mistakes, he wasn't perfect. And it's a shame that we are allowing mainstream Zionist media to shape the narrative of our leaders' lives, starting with a black man named Christ. And it seemed as if we don't really appreciate or show our appreciation to our leaders and don't know what they meant, really what they mean to us until they're taken. Well, the Bible speaks of that. Elder Lawyer, let's read that part real quick. We set up the scriptures well beforehand. And brothers and sisters, I apologize for the late start, but keeping in mind, as I was getting all of this stuff together, I went through 2 computer crashes. In the midst of me putting all the videos together and all that, a blue screen came up once. Totally, the thing ran hot. And I'm like, I know they're trying to stop this broadcast this evening. That's the reason why I'm about an hour late. But you know what? It's really an important conversation. We're living in a time where the Holy Spirit is resonating in the earth, brothers and sisters. And a lot of you are being called to step up to a leadership that you didn't realize you were called to. So I'm not just speaking of people who are in a position of leadership. Circumstances takes us or gets us here. Those who sigh, cry, the people who are not waiting around for a change, realizing it's not going to happen if it doesn't start with me. Folks, that's what makes a leader. A leader don't wait for everyone else. They get the calling from the Almighty and act immediately. And I'm talking about you. And the question is, many people had the talent and wisdom to, to lead many, and the education to lead many. But because of their logic and reasoning, they weighed it in a balance and said it wasn't worth it. They were so logical when it comes to the knowledge of this world. There's many people that went to college, brothers and sisters, who are highly educated, who are socially, economically in place to do things. But because they're so intertwined in the world, they have weighed it into the balance and decided under certain circumstances to be quiet. They have the aptitude, the education, just like Martin Luther King did, and the know-how to help our people get out of this condition. But through logic, what they lack out of all of that is the courage. The courage. Because when you weigh it in the balance, as you're going up, as the Most High is bringing you into places, giving you total understanding of what's going on, there's always a person who's going to come to you and say, you know you're ruffling feathers. You know what you're saying has now resonated in political halls and areas, and they deem you a problem. This is going to happen. And those who are in position, who have cushy lives, are saying, you know what? I don't know if it's worth it. So that in of itself makes it where at least we need to appreciate and look back on those who have sacrificed the lives, the time they could have had with their families, raising their children, and reflect back on them like they would have wanted us to see their life put on the line for us. And I believe that's what this broadcast is about tonight. You cannot see what's going on and not just do anything. Starting with doing what? Improving our own homes. Yeah, we all from broken homes and things are tattered and destroyed, but it starts with us. That's ground level control of what we can start when it comes to having the courage to fix things. But let's talk about the leaders now, Elder Lawyer. Do we appreciate our past leaders' sacrifice? I need you to read about the testator real quick.
Yes, sir. This is Hebrews 9:15, where it says, "And for this cause he is the mediator of the New Testament, that by means of death, for the redemption of the transgressions that were under the first testament, they which are called might receive the promise of eternal inheritance. For where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator."
Look at that. Where a testament is, there must be the death of the testator. This is what closes the chapter on that man's courage, life, and sacrifice for people. This is what makes people look back and say, you know what? This man should never be forgotten. A book. That's what Christ became to us, the New Testament. So his life would never be forgotten. But you know what? There would have been no appreciation for him if he didn't get sacrificed for the sins of our nation. And if there and through that sacrifice, it would have to be through some people who deemed Christ's life a threat to theirs, to their way of life. When Christ walked the earth, you couldn't walk amongst him without operating with some level of conscience or guilt in comparison to that particular man. So if you were living a certain type of way and this man was just doing the right thing, helping others, that shined a light on how dark you were. And some people couldn't stand that. Instead of changing and repenting, they began to resent the man who was actually sent to help them. And that's what happens. That man starts saying things or doing things and ruffling feathers. It was okay when other people's darkness were being pulled out. But when he starts saying things that hit you, in which you must change, now that man is a problem. You can talk about everybody else, but now you're discussing something about the things I need to change now. And that did what? That began to stir up resentment socially against Christ. And that's what happens. Where even those who claim to love you or were close to you will eventually turn on you. And I'm going to talk about that. Read that again, Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir. Verse 16. For where a testament is, there must also of necessity be the death of the testator. For a testament is of force after men are dead.
After they are dead. Come on.
Otherwise, it is of no strength at all while the testator liveth.
So that means the strength of Christ's life and to remember him to the degree in which we're still talking about him almost 2,000 years later. His death had to close the chapter. He had to sacrifice so that shock could actually move through the hearts of men in the future so that they can examine their lives with his and do what? Make a change. And Christ isn't asking us to make the sacrifice he did. He's just asking us to do the bare minimum, what's right for our families, for our people. He's not asking us to give and shed our blood on the heavenly tables. To appreciate what he did. Our living sacrifice is to fix what we can and be willing to sacrifice, even if the world hates us. Paul said in Romans 11, and he beseeched the Most High. He prayed to the Most High God. Lord, Lord, Romans 11. 11:3, he says, Lord, they have killed thy prophets and dig down thine altars. And I am left alone, and they seek my life. Every institution that was speaking righteousness was torn down. And it wasn't just the enemy, the Romans, coming after Paul. It was a large population of our people who the Roman Empire knew they could use as mercenaries. There's always a segment. Let me tell you, Esau cannot do what he does to us or can't continue to do what he do to us unless our people are complicit. But even the Most High had to come back through the Holy Spirit and show Paul, listen, Paul, stand up in courage. I have 5,000 men that haven't bowed to Baal. I have many thousands of men that haven't bowed to Baal. Thousands. You may not know them, Paul, but there's others out there with the same courage as you. And through that, Paul became encouraged. Because attempting to help lead a people can be a daunting task. To a degree, especially when it's your own people attacking you and trying to destroy you, it can become a very lonely place. a very lonely place. And if you're not careful leading, when there's no appreciation, when you know you're willing to spill your blood for your own people, if you're not careful, the resentment on those people that are coming against you will begin to jump and begin to affect you where you'll have resentment. And you cannot do this work having resentment of others. Forgiveness must replace resentment, even for those who want you dead, even for those who hate your guts. That's a tough place to be. But Christ, through the Holy Spirit, continually encouraged the disciples, Paul and others, and saying, well, listen, I got other men. You're not by yourself. Don't give up. Continue the fight. Elder Lawyer, let's get Ezekiel 2, then I have a few videos to show.
Yes, sir. Ezekiel chapter 2, verse number 5.
Yeah.
And they, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear, for they are a rebellious house.
So the Most High says, go to my people. Tell them the truth, whether they hear or forbear. Whether they hear or forbear. Whether they listen or don't listen. And brothers and sisters, this is why I think we're at a time now. A judgment is in the earth. And I'm going to say this outright. We should be at a time where we're totally ripped down, don't listen to, and don't support anything that's coming from the conscious community. Because all they do is promote division, debate, confusing our people on either side without solution. Straight out. They're robbers. They're scammers. And I'm going to speak about them in particular right now because they have the spirit of those who killed the prophets. The majority of the people who support the conscious community came directly out of the Christian church. Believed in the Bible. Believed in morality. And they targeted these people with the satanic brand of a religion that would keep us divided. Only to crap on the same Bible those people once believed in. And it's time that we look at that as a tool, a divisive, and I'm going to show you, a divisive government tool when it comes to Black Panthers, when it comes to these different religions that came up. At the same time, it was an attack on our unity. And we can't talk about Martin Luther King and not talk about how the conscious community was able to come in to continue to divide and destroy us at a time in which we needed unity. So it has to come a time as a people that we as a people have to get to a degree where we're not fueling it or giving it ears or eyes, because none of them are coming with solutions. And they're going against the only book that could bring solutions, because the Bible has what? Moral codes, civil laws, ceremonies, tradition that can put us all aligned with the God who made us. We got a lot of whack job scammers and crazy people just tearing apart and tearing apart our people, aiming that towards the who? The impressionable, the weak. And the reason I'm pointing them out in particular, because white people don't have to worry about the conscious community. Asian people don't have to worry about them. They're targeting us. And it's time we look at the enemies that are within who are not bringing solution. You can believe what you want to believe, but you better have a solution behind it. I don't care what you believe. What is your solution? And in turn, we bring in solution. Starting with the 10 Commandments, starting with the civility and morality of the book. We can unite under that where you don't have to worry about me stealing from you, scamming from you, killing you, committing adultery, selling drugs to you. The conscious community is the cancer within our people. And you can only see it from their works. You still got some demon from Philadelphia running around talking about a school since 2009 for black boys. Listen, hell with that. Black boys should stay as far away from that Satanist as possible. Always talking about black queens, but he refused to marry one. And this is why the conscious community attacks the Bible. Because with the Bible comes what? You got it, a moral code. And I don't care if you open up this Bible, even if you don't believe in it, it's going to sear your conscience. Something in that Bible is going to have you examine yourself with it that would lead to either you hating the Bible or changing altogether. And that's why the Bible says, whether you hear or forbear. Talk to the people whether they listen or not. Let them know a judgment is coming. But brothers and sisters, we have to stop running the foolishness out there that we know is destroying our people. And make a stand. And how do we make a stand in a capitalistic society? With our finances. Guess what? If we stop supporting it, they'll change. I don't ever want to go to a place where all they talk about is what religion is better and how many people challenging one another, and all of us are on a sinking ship. This Egyptologist against this Israelite, this guy against that guy, and no one is going nowhere. And if I wouldn't know, brothers and sisters, if I wouldn't know better, I would believe that that's a government-funded ideology. Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir.
I want to show a few things about Martin Luther King that probably a few people didn't know. But before I do that, do you have anything you would like to say before I show some of these videos?
No, sir. But I can finish out Ezekiel 2 and 5, and
yeah, let's do it.
Move on to the videos.
Let's do it.
Yes, sir. This is Ezekiel 2 and 5. And they, whether they will hear or whether they will forbear, for they are a rebellious house, yet shall know that there have been a prophet among them.
Look at that. It's a rebellious house. The Most High says, talk to them. Whether they hear or whether they turn their back on you. But at the end of it, read it again, Elder Lawyer.
Yet shall know that there have been a prophet among them.
At the end of it, whether you listen to it or not, you're going to know if the Most High sent prophets before you. Right? Because what they told you comes to pass. Whether you hear it or forbear, whether you hear it or say, I don't want to hear what that Bible have to say, you can't deny that you were warned by a prophet of the Almighty. And the Most High is doing that so that the accountability falls strictly on the individual who had the information and didn't act on it. Now, there's a lot of things we didn't know about Martin Luther King. Speaking of his birthday and all that, we don't celebrate that and all that. We understand that the pagans would like to put his birthday at a time in which pagans were celebrating some other sacrifice in ancient Greece or Rome. But since we want to talk about Martin Luther King and honor him, let me show you a few videos about him that you all probably didn't know existed. Let's go. Martin Luther King's dream.
My four little children will one day live in a nation where they will not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I have a dream today.
I must confess that that dream that I had that day has at many points turned into a nightmare. Now, I'm not one to lose hope. I keep on hoping. I still have faith in the future. But I've had to analyze many things over the last few years, and I would say over the last few months. I've gone through a lot of soul-searching and agonizing moments, and I've come to see that we have many more difficult days ahead, and some of the old optimism was a little superficial, and now it must be tempered with a solid realism. And I think the realistic fact is that we still have a long, long way to go, and that we are involved in a war on Asian soil, which, if not checked and stopped, can poison the very soul of our nation. I'm not going to say that all of our problems will be solved if the war in Vietnam is ended, but I do say that the war makes it infinitely more difficult to deal with these problems. When a nation becomes obsessed with the guns of war, it loses its social perspective, and programs of social uplift suffer. This is just a fact of history, so that we do face many more difficulties as a result of the war. It's much more difficult to really arouse a conscience during a time of war. There is something about a war like this that makes people insensitive. It dulls the conscience. It strengthens the forces of reaction, and it brings into being bitterness and hatred and violence. I think the biggest problem now is that we got our gains over the last 12 years at bargain rate, so to speak. It didn't cost the nation anything. In fact, it helped the economic side of the nation to integrate lunch counters and public accommodations. It didn't cost the nation anything to get the right to vote established. And now we are confronting issues that cannot be solved without costing the nation billions of dollars. Now, I think this is where we're getting our greatest resistance. They may put it on many other things, but we can't get rid of slums and poverty without...
Brothers and sisters, did you hear what he just said? What we celebrate as a people being able to vote, he's saying, well, listen, that didn't cost the American corporate structure anything. If anything, by integrating us into your society, you are making more money. It didn't take anything for them to say you can vote. Because why? They know they can control our votes because we are emotional voters. We don't vote for anything that will actually benefit us. The only thing they have to do is convince you that the other guy's racist. So, hence, what are we showing you here? The true reason they killed Martin Luther King. If our people built this country, and this is a capitalistic society, you cannot show any level of sorrow against the destruction you did on our people without us financially capitalizing. Voting was one of the biggest shams that was put on our people because we're the only people that vote and don't expect anything out of it. Hence the reason, listen to what he said here.
Over the last 12 years at bargain rate, so to speak, didn't cost the nation anything. In fact,
it didn't cost them anything. They didn't give us anything. Because when we integrated into their particular systems and was able to go into their restaurants, that gave their families who owned the restaurants generational wealth. And we stopped going to support our own. So that put us further in poverty. That was a sham. So that we were forced to actually feel good about supporting the same people who were oppressing us. And
it
when
helped the economic side
Listen.
of the nation to integrate lunch counters and public accommodations. It didn't cost the nation anything to get the right to vote established. And now we are confronting issues that cannot be solved without costing the nation billions of dollars. Now, I think this is where we're getting our greatest resistance.
That's where.
They may put it on many other things, but we can't get rid of slums and poverty without it costing the nation something.
Exactly. See what he's saying? And folks, you have to check out the camera angle of this news take right here. The camera angle speaks to the white liberals who were afraid of black people rising. They strategically aimed the camera where the white man was below and under the black man. Understanding their viewers, folks. You have to understand that everything they do is strategic. This camera angle was a warning to the white liberals. If we don't do nothing about this guy, this black man will be above the white man. Because what he's asking for can break our society. Everything they do is strategic.
The nonviolence is really the only way that we can follow, because violence is just so self-defeating. A riot ends up creating many more problems for the Negro community than it solves. You can, through violence, burn down a building, but you can't establish justice. You can murder a murderer, but you can't murder through violence. You can murder a hater, but you can't murder hate. And what we are trying to get rid of is hate and injustice and all of these other things that continue the long night of man's inhumanity to man.
When we allow freedom ring, when we let it ring from every village and every hamlet, from every state and every city, we will be able to speed up that day when all of God's children, black men and white men, Jews and Gentiles, Protestants and Catholics, will be able to join hands and sing in the words of the old Negro spiritual, free at last, free at last, thank God Almighty, we are free at last.
Hey, brothers and sisters, behind closed doors, there were certain dossiers and paperwork put together discussing the influence of Martin Luther King in that time period. This man had more political pull than any elected official in the world. Doesn't matter whether or not you're in a political position if you have influence and have an idea that all people can cleave to. See? He was more powerful. Guess what, folks? It was 6 years before Barack Obama was put in position to be president because he was raised to do so. For 6 years, they had him studying Martin Luther King's orative skills, his inflections. This man was more powerful at that time, speaking of Martin Luther King, than the president of the United States. But he was killed when he started bringing forth political agendas that would get our people permanently out of poverty. So they would need people from the inside to destroy the man. How many of you heard of this story? From Martin Luther King's own lips.
You know, several years ago, I was in New York City. It was a dark Saturday afternoon. The minute black woman came up, the only question I heard from her was, "You Martin Luther King?" And I said, "Yes." The next minute, I felt something beating on my chest. Before I knew it, I had been stabbed by this demented woman. That blade had gone through and the x-rays revealed the tip of the blade was on the edge of my aorta, the main artery. And once that's punctured, you're drowned in your own blood. That's the end of it. It came out in the New York Times the next morning that if I had merely sneezed, I would have died. After my chest had been opened and the blade had been taken out, from all over the states and the world, kind letters came in. One of them I will never forget.
Fair use.
I had received one from the president and the vice president. I've forgotten what those telegrams said. I received a visit and a letter from the governor of New York, but I've forgotten what that letter said. But there was another letter that came from a little girl. Said simply, "Dear Dr. King, while it should not matter, I would like to mention that I'm a white girl. I'm simply writing you to say that I'm so happy that you didn't sneeze." And I want to say tonight that I too am happy that I didn't sneeze, because if I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1960 when students all over the South started sitting in at lunch counters. And I knew that as they were sitting in, they were really standing up for the best in the American dream, and taking the whole nation back to those great wells of democracy, which were dug deep by the founding fathers in the Declaration of Independence and the Constitution. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1961 when we decided to take a ride for freedom and ended segregation in interstate travel. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been around here in 1962 when Negroes in Albany, Georgia decided to straighten their backs up. And whenever men and women straighten their backs up, they are going somewhere, because a man can't ride your back unless it is bent. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been here in 1963. Black people of Birmingham, Alabama aroused the conscience of this nation and brought into being the Civil Rights Bill. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have had a chance later that year in August to try to tell America about a dream that I had had. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been down in Selma, Alabama to see the great movement there. If I had sneezed, I wouldn't have been in Memphis to see a community rally around those brothers and sisters who are suffering. I'm so happy that I didn't sneeze. Like anybody, I would like to live, but I'm not concerned about that now. I just want to do God's will. So I'm happy tonight. I'm not worried about anything. I'm not fearing any man. Mine eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Let us rise up tonight.
Man, oh man. Man, when I seen that years ago, it hurt my heart. A black woman came up to Martin Luther King, a leader, someone who was willing to sacrifice his life, to a degree where he wouldn't even see his own children grow to full age. Are you Martin Luther King? And put a blade a few centimeters from his artery in his heart. Folks, I'm going to tell you, man, a lot of people want to just look at the white man, this, that, and the other. There's always a segment of our population who resent those who would bring change because they're thinking of how that change is going to affect their personal situation and what they've established. They can't see the big picture. They're looking at everything through the little world they've created for themselves and deem change as a threat. Folks, listen, I will never put myself on plateaus or in comparison to any of these great men. But I'll tell you this, folks, I've seen people I barely knew, women, who have made videos and do all these things. And folks, do you think if these people with so much resentment and hatred, if they could get close like that woman got, do you think they wouldn't do the same? I can relate on that level. You can see the hatred in people and the demon in people where they're so close-minded to the degree in which they cannot actually see the big picture. That's the sickness that's within our community that keeps us down. There's always someone that's going to look at a person who's willing to sacrifice their life and say, you know what? There must be a con somewhere. There must be a game. This can't be real. There must be an angle. Because why? Because there's nothing in them that can relate to someone who would sacrifice with courage for them. They don't understand. They never seen it through the eyes of those who would love a people and would be willing to sacrifice their lives for people. Why? Because they're selfish. They've never viewed the world that way. Folks, the white man isn't the problem. There was no white man when the children of Israel, when our people were in the wilderness, while Moses was receiving the moral law that would keep us on code. There was a party going down at the bottom of the mountain. A party happening where our people were worshiping Baal, Yahweh, at the bottom of the mountain. The white man wasn't there. It wasn't no white man that put that sister up to stab Martin Luther King. But you know what? We seldom hear about that incident because why? Folks, media purposely have suppressed that story. They suppressed that story. Why? Because they needed sisters to take on feminism to progress the white woman's plight in America. And even though there was many strong, courageous black women behind Martin Luther King, they could not highlight that one that was an enemy because politically it would destroy their cause. It would destroy the optics of them using black women for feminism. Okay? So they had to hide that segment that exists within our community because that woman who stabbed Martin Luther King, if they can create 1,000 of them, 10,000 of them, there will be no need for the white man to put his foot on a black man's neck. So they had to hide that segment of our community that when it comes to that particular woman, so that she could be a sleeper cell amongst our communities to destroy the future of everything our leaders worked for. And it's up to us to point them out. Point them out. Any system, any person operating outside of the moral codes according to the Almighty, point them out as a what? Not to attack or harm that person, to let them understand their destructive behavior in a space for them to repent and change their ways and become a useful a useful person within our community. Now, on the other hand, we had Messy Jesse. So it's not just a black woman who would stab a leader. You always have there will be a traitor somewhere, like Messy Jesse. He wanted to keep the dream alive. So when Martin Luther King came with a new message saying, well, no, it's about economic empowerment for black people, Messy Jesse took sides with the government against him so that they can keep that dream message to integrate and really to siphon money out of our communities into the corporate coffers. Next video, fair use.
Do you feel that your message, apparent message of love that you brought back from Islam is the real reason they're after you, because you're not hating as hard as they want you to?
Well, I never did hate anybody hard. But I do know that when I wrote that letter saying that there were white people in Mecca, it shook up a lot of Muslims, because most of the Muslims who follow Mr. Muhammad absolutely believed that it was impossible, physically impossible, I should say divinely impossible, for a white person to go to Mecca. And my trip there shattered that image, or that misconcept.
Anyone call you directly, Malcolm?
Oh, I've been receiving calls ever since I left the Black Muslim movement.
And what sort of calls, Malcolm? You're disenchanted in view of the fact that these men who were your brothers are making threats against your life?
No, because actually it's not their fault. Most of them, now Joseph and the officials, they have a knowledge of what it's all about. But the rank and file Muslim brother does not know what it's all about. They are, out of religious sincerity, they think that they are doing the will of Allah by protecting a man who I myself taught them was divine. So I don't in any way fault them. But those who are over them and give the orders, and actually the ultimate order comes from Elijah Muhammad himself. As long as I represented the Black Muslim movement as an example of morality, unity, and militancy, as long as I could do that, I represented it. It was when I realized that it could not be represented as that I came on and started working among the non-Muslim Negroes, as I announced in January. And I had no intention, or rather March, and I had no intention of ever even speaking on this. Had they left me alone, you still wouldn't know what really took place.
Why are they threatening your life?
Well, primarily because they're afraid that I will tell the real reason that I'm out of the Black Muslim movement, which I never told.
Now, brothers and sisters, do you think Malcolm was more afraid of the white man interviewing him or the organization he helped build? Who was he more afraid of? Was he more afraid of the white man interviewing him or his own?
I kept to myself. But the real reason is that Elijah Muhammad, the head of the movement, is the father of 8 children by 6 different teenage girls. 6 different teenage girls who were his private personal secretary. The one who first made me aware of this was Wallace Muhammad, Mr. Muhammad's son. And I had stated in a newspaper article about an effort to take my life back in January, and at that...
Now, I'm going to tell you the truth. When I look back at this, I don't agree with Malcolm's strategy here. But then on the other side of things, I have to put myself in his shoes. What happens if the only life you knew and built from the ground was the Nation of Islam? Don't forget, Muhammad speaks, all of that came from the mind of Malcolm X. And then his livelihood, the only house he would have to raise his children, is being pulled from under him, in which they are evicting him, putting him in the street, putting Malcolm in the street. So I'd have to put my self in his place and say, well, okay, why would he operate like this? Well, the only home his children knew he was being put out of. And I believe that it could have been politically worked out amongst the leadership to at least give Malcolm X a severance, including the house he worked for his children. But this is what happens when you push a man in a corner where he feel there are little options. So I try to look at both sides, right? They throwing Molotov cocktails in his home, threatening him every place he go, ringing and threatening his phone. When he was the man that helped build, it wasn't Elijah Muhammad. Let me tell you, Nation of Islam could not have become what Farrakhan was able to walk into if it wasn't for Malcolm X. He had the voice. He had the stature, and he was one of the greatest orators who can tell the white man exactly what was going on at that particular time. And there was no one, when it comes to being able to look establishments in the face and telling them the truth to their face, there was no one who could rival Malcolm at that time when it comes to real-time interviews. And that even includes Martin Luther King. So I try to put myself in both of their shoes, but I believe that right here at this interview, Malcolm X deemed this his only option, knowing that if he don't go before the press and put it out there first, if he die, then there'll be no leads or suspects in place. I believe he know right here, this interview. I really believe he know in this interview that he is a dead man. But man, why does it always have to be our own people? With Messy Jesse on the balcony, exactly in proximity, as if they were there knowing it was going to happen for Martin Luther King. Why it always have to be our own? Christ and Judas. Judas was Christ's friend. Oh, Lord have mercy. Why we just can't appreciate our leaders, man, while they're with us.
Time the Muslims denied it. In fact, they tried to make it appear to my brother that I was insane. But on a program in Chicago called Hotline, that's moderated by Wesley South, John Ali, the national secretary, admitted, I think it was Wednesday or Thursday, one of these days last week, that they absolutely were going to kill me.
What steps will you take to protect yourself from this threat?
I take no steps. I have a rifle. If anybody comes to my house without a good reason, I intend to try and use it, and that's all.
Right now?
No, I don't worry. I tell you, I'm a man who believed that I died 20 years ago, and I live like a man who is dead already. I have no fear whatsoever of anybody or anything.
Lawyer, I'm about to bring in the phone calls, but before then, I'm sure you have something to say. So it's deep in of itself when I reflect back at Christ, all the leaders that led up. There's many, too many to count, but I want to highlight those who our people remember, and what I would call our modern history, right?
Yes, sir.
But all in all, it seems like it doesn't matter the era. It's the same narrative. I don't know if you ever seen that video about the sister who put a knife in Martin Luther King's chest, asking him, was he Martin Luther King first? Now, brothers and sisters, what y'all don't know, many days, I've gotten video. I mean, I have received, oh yeah, Malcolm was next level. He was. Believe me. I've received email and all stuff where people, whether it be men and women or whatever the case, would want to threaten me. Straight out. Right? And I'm talking about people that I don't even know. Because why? This truth is resonating. Think about it when we bring out to stand in faith. To stand in faith, brothers and sisters, regardless of what goes on, we cannot subjugate ourselves to the mark of the beast. We are to stay holistic, and we are to keep our bodies as natural as possible according to the will of our God. Now imagine that message goes out and a husband or wife see that video where the wife or the husband start taking stances based on their belief, based on their faith in God, not to take certain substances that's pushed through government. One believe and the other doesn't. The one that doesn't will begin to study my videos with an evil eye, looking for something negative. I don't even know the person. And eventually create or cultivate a hatred against a stranger because someone in their home is taking a stance for themselves. Folks, I'm going to tell you, folks, there's so many dynamics and some people, I think, Elder Lawyer, I remember when one sister got on some broadcast against me and stated that when we went to the Passover, we went to a gathering, she was mocking us or mocking me, claiming that it was like I didn't know who he thought he was, like he was the president of the United States, had all these people around him, right? Making it as if I'm propping myself up to be protected, with her not knowing the threat out there. Without her, she don't read the email. She don't deal with the circumstances where someone say, if you come into this city, this is what's going to happen. And I have to go into that city anyway for my people. See? They'll find any way to make what? Any action that's a normal action when it comes to one protecting themselves or whatever. When someone has an evil eye against you, brothers and sisters, you can do no right. Everything is evil you do. And I believe that's one of the lonely places when it comes to a leader. It's because it's how you perceive by people in which you cannot even control their perception. You don't even know them. And you have to protect yourself from them. All right. But go ahead, Elder.
Right. And if I could.
Go ahead.
If I can just speak to that, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but the whole concept or the whole idea of having protection and security at some of these events, this is not something that we necessarily, just woke up one morning and stated, well, we're going to need these security teams when we have a Passover, when we have these major events. It was brethren in leadership who decided and came together and said that at these events, let's make sure that the elders or yourself is protected. So it's not like even you came about and said, well, I'm just, I'm this guy who floated out the sky and I need a whole bunch of people around me to protect me. No, brothers came together and said, we need to make sure that the elder is safe at these events. That's just what it is,
Okay, I just want to put it out there because you don't even know how someone is examining you who's in the room. So it didn't take that radio show for her to say that, Elder Lawyer. That's what she thought in the room with me.
Right.
You understand?
Right, exactly.
That was her perception. Yep. That was her perception of us being amongst us.
Right.
And I didn't even know the sister had a problem. Next thing you know, there was a radio show. They say she came on. Right? Yeah, I'll bring you in 1 second, Gaza, because I know you have a few things to say. I'm going to bring you in. But go ahead. Say what you have to say, then I'm going to bring Gaja in. I don't know if Gabar want to come in. If so, just text me and I'll bring you in. But go ahead, Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir. I just had a few scriptures I wanted to bring out. And this is coming from the perspective that, looking back at leaders in our modern time and even if we're going to go back and examine leaders from the biblical time, it's very easy to look back and say that you would have stood on the right side of those leaders being in this time, seeing how the story played out, see who were the bad guys and who were the good guys, so to speak, in the story. It's very easy to say that I would be on the side standing with the good guy. Well, according to the scriptures, I'm not going to show, and you all are going to see that the leadership of Israel did the same exact thing. When I say the leadership of Israel, I'm speaking about the scribes and the Pharisees. They did the same exact thing. They said that if they were, and made many claims that if they were in the time of Moses, that they would have stood with Moses. But Christ had to correct them and let it be known that no, you guys don't stand with Moses. You stand against Moses. If we read here in the book of John, chapter 9, verse 27, it says, he answered them, meaning Christ answered them, the scribes and the Pharisees, I have told you already, and you did not hear. Wherefore do ye hear it again? Will ye also be his disciples? Then they reviled him. Salakia, this is not Christ speaking. This is the guy who was healed by, who Christ healed. Mm-hmm. I think he healed his sight. So it says here in verse number 28, then they reviled him. They reviled the man that was healed and said, thou art his disciple, but we are Moses' disciples. So the scribes and Pharisees, they would often boast themselves and say that, in essence, if we were in the time of Moses, we would have stood with Moses. But check this out. And I'm going to read this verse as well, verse 29. We know that God spake unto Moses. As for this fellow, meaning as for Christ, we know not from whence he is. So again, they were always looking back and looking at Moses and looking at other ancient leaders and trying to pit them against Christ as if they stood on the side of righteousness. But let's check out what Christ said. John 5:46 says, or I'll start in 45, do you not think that I will accuse you to the Father? There is one that accuseth you, even Moses, in whom ye trust. For had ye believed Moses, ye would have believed me, for he wrote of me. But if ye believe not his writing, how shall ye believe my words? So I'm using this as an example to show that it's very easy to look back in history and seeing how stories played out and seeing who were the good guys, who were the bad guys, and say that I would stand on the side of the leaders, those who were trying to do right for our people. And, you know, also it's easy to look back, and I want to mention this as well before I continue. It's very easy to look back and see the mistakes some of the leaders made and point out and say, well, they made this mistake, that mistake, so on and so forth, and therefore they're not to be regarded or they're not to be respected for the work they've done and the sacrifices that they've made. And I'm going to say that that's incorrect. If we're going to take that stance, we can, like the scribes and Pharisees did, look back at Moses, and we can look at the mistake he made that prevented him from walking into the kingdom and use that against him. Now, we all know that that would not be wise. The same way it wouldn't be wise to just simply go back. And that's a very popular thing during this time of year for people to look back on what Malcolm did, just using him as an example, or what a Martin Luther King did, and point out the shortcomings and point out the wrong things. And it's very popular to come with the I have dreamed scriptures and say that Martin Luther King was of the devil because of his dream and he was a false prophet and things of that nature. That's very easy. Okay?
Yeah.
But one thing we can say about all...
See, but Elder Lawyer, I'm going to let you come back in, but you know why people are so biased with their wrong perception? Because even those who follow the Bible and just use I have a dream and try to say that Martin Luther King is evil and all that, it's because the only perception they could have was through the lenses of the media who shaped Martin Luther King's narrative without telling people what Martin Luther King was saying before they killed him. So now it's just the I have a dream is what they would use to politically integrate and to circumvent us. Of course, they would keep that as Martin Luther King's narrative. So a lot of these people that are coming against Martin is in true ignorance of, they believe the white man's narrative of Martin. So they say the white man is the devil, but yet they don't have enough know-how to actually look into what Martin Luther King was saying before they killed him. And that's another thing. Leaders can grow. And that's another thing people don't like. Just because Martin started a certain type of way in the 50s, age and wisdom would cultivate and shape him into someone different. Well, suppose he become different than the man you knew. That's what happened with age. It's not because people change. They have grown. But the people who would like to remember you there would say, oh, he changed. No, he matured.
Exactly.
But go on.
And you know what? And that's a very good point. Absolutely. That's a very good point. And here's the reality. The people who don't agree with the I Have a Dream Martin Luther King, may more so agree with the Martin Luther King that was played earlier in the video, making those statements.
Yeah.
And vice versa. Those who may have liked Malcolm under the Nation of Islam probably wouldn't like Malcolm's message after he left the Nation of Islam.
Exactly.
But again, do we disregard the work that he did and what he helped to build and the overall message and the things he did while a minister of the Nation of Islam? Absolutely not.
Yeah.
And the same thing with Martin. Both of them had their path. They both had their journey. You can agree, you can disagree, but nonetheless, you cannot deny that both men had a genuine spirit for the embetterment of their people, regardless of their approach.
Exactly.
Just two more scriptures.
But go ahead. It's the floor.
I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, the floor.
No, go ahead.
Go ahead. It's good. Go ahead. Come on.
Yes, sir. Just two scriptures I want to read, and you can elaborate.
Okay.
Just to show, because we're asking the question, do we appreciate our leaders? And I'm using the Bible as an example. Okay. Because I know, again, when we speak about more so modern leaders in our time, it's very easy for us to castigate and speak down upon them. And when we try to use them as examples, you have a lot of people who have their opinions and therefore cannot respect what we're trying to say when we speak of leaders in our current time. Why y'all talking about Malcolm X? He was a Muslim. And why are you talking about Dr. King with his false ideologies and things of that nature? So people love to do that when we bring these people up from our modern time. So I'm going to use biblical characters to put forth this message. Here's Moses, right? And you can elaborate on this.
Okay.
This is Moses after the golden calf, where the Most High was at the point in which he wanted to kill the whole nation and start a new nation with Moses. And Moses protested and prayed for the nation. Exodus 32 and 9, where it says, and the Lord said unto Moses, I have seen this people, and behold, it is a stiff-necked people. Now therefore let me alone, that my wrath may wax hot against them, and that I may consume them, and I will make of thee a great nation. And Moses besought the Lord his God and said, Lord, why doeth thy wrath wax hot against thy people, which thou hast brought forth out of the land of Egypt with great power and with a mighty hand? Wherefore should the Egyptians speak and say, for mischief did he bring them out to slay them in the mountains and to consume them from the face of the earth? Turn from thy fierce wrath and repent of this evil against thy people. Remember Abraham, Isaac, and Israel, thy servants, to whom thou swearest by thine own self, and saidest unto them, I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven. In all this land I've spoken of will I give unto your seed, and they shall inherit it forever. And the Lord repented of the evil which he thought to do unto his people. So here you have Moses actually praying on behalf of the people after they committed a wicked act of worshiping a golden calf. The Most High was ready to kill him. Moses prayed for him. Now, the same people that Moses prayed for, I'm not sure if I go to the next one, if you have anything you want to say on that.
No.
Before I go to the next one.
That's the sacrifice of a leader, right? How could he become a leader in good faith? Leaders are shaped different. How can you be a leader in good faith and not feel for people who might be destroyed for their actions. Right? So he understood that what their actions were counterproductive for them and would lead to death. Well, what type of leader is without a people to help lead and to protect? So even when they went against him, he still went into what? Shepherd mode, caring mode.
Right.
Even against them. And this is what people don't understand. It's a different mindset when you care for others. Right? It's an unselfish position to be in. Where even if they're trying to attack or kill you, you're still saying, you know what? These were the people the Most High sent me to help see. There have to be, there must be a conscience in them somewhere that can help them know that I'm for them. I'm not against them. Elder Lawyer. And I'm just saying, and sometimes I would like to bring it real time in comparison to how when people can't find anything, they'll even make up lies. There's this thing out there, Elder Lawyer, we was talking about in the academy, where when people see the structure of our church, we set up a structure of 508 so that we wouldn't become 501c3. Right? It's the original structure that was in place that gave what? Churches total separation from state.
Right.
And now you got some people saying, oh, there's a Jewish guy over the church. And I'm like, people don't even have the patience to look up what that person is. He's an agent that has a license to do that particular type of nonprofit. That's a lawyer you pay for one service who need a license. The same way if I have anybody that I sold insurance to, my license as an agent is on their policy. It doesn't mean that they know me. So our people don't even have enough patience to look into titles. And this is what I'm saying. It's almost embarrassing when I think about some of the depths they'll go to try to prove something wrong. You know why? Because if we're right in all these things that they're claiming isn't correct, then they have to ask themselves why you're not with your brothers who are doing the truth. So they have to find and fabricate or create something to justify them being separate.
Right.
Like, if you're going to dig in, because it's public record, you cannot be a nonprofit without being public record. So it's not like it's hiding, it's out there. It's supposed to be out there. So that people can have tax deductions or whatever to show that they have donated or whatever for their taxes. They should get that back when they're contributing to a church or a nonprofit. So it has to be public. So they think they're fine. Oh yeah, here's this Jewish guy that's over the church. And wrong answer. Look up his title. He's a man that I don't know who was paid as an agent to set up a 508. A one-time fee, and that's all. But his license number to set that up must be attached to the entity. But I'm just putting it out there because it's public anyway. But I'm just showing you the nonsense people would go through to try to say something is evil. And that's why Christ says, when your eye is evil, your whole body's evil. How many of you paid for a lawyer? How many of you, when you were in an instance, paid a lawyer to do something? So don't talk about don't pay white people to do things when it's our finances that are upholding the white liberals who are controlling our community. And guess what? If there was a brother who had that specific license, the original nonprofit for churches, we would have, as long as he have a license, I don't care if he's from Tibet. But we wasn't going to do we were going to do the nonprofit that was established in America that totally gave separation of church and state, not having a compromised nonprofit. Huh? There you go. Go ahead, Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir. Continuing on, this is Numbers 16 and 3. Check out the spirit of the same people that Moses prayed for and actually saved in the wilderness. Check out the spirit of these same people and how they returned the favor. Numbers 16 and 3. And they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron.
Okay, let me say this too. Someone that's under a 501c3, that's not evil. That's not wicked or evil either. That's just a status for a nonprofit. Churches cannot operate unless they're under a status. You can't even set up a bank account to do business that would pay the bills for your church if you don't have a status first. So I think what's happening, because what our people do, we've convoluted matters with the prosperity movement and automatically relate 501c3 with prosperity preachers.
Right.
When that's just a status that would allow them to operate separate from government control. That's all it is. It's a corporate status. That's all it is, that separates the church so that they can do business separate from the state. So even that in of itself isn't evil or wrong or have any negative connotation to it. It's just that when we were looking at statuses, we wanted to go with the original status before the 501c3, because why? We didn't want everything we say according to the Bible, we should have the freedom to say it. Okay? And that's what we're allowed to do. Okay? But go ahead, Elder.
Absolutely. And just to mention something on that, the mistake a lot of times brothers and sisters make is they look at the origin of it and see that something started with nefarious origins and try to make that the big thing about why you shouldn't get status or whatever the case may be. But there's a lot of things that we have to use in a society that probably have nefarious origins, but you can't operate in a society without it.
Elder Lawyer, but in a nutshell, obviously the people that are viewing never set up anything. They don't know what it is.
Exactly. And that's
that's what I'm saying in a nutshell. Even if a person set up a hot dog stand and went and got an LLC and had to pay their taxes, they would understand it more so than a person who have never established anything at all, let alone something or an entity that need people on the board of directors. So it's out of their sphere to actually understand, because it's organization, something that a lot of our people aren't used to and look down upon, because they're used to people just operating on a hustle by yourself. They don't know what it is to be organized. And that's not to shame or look down on them, but people shouldn't speak on scenarios they have no knowledge of. It's embarrassing.
Absolutely.
It's embarrassing for them. But go ahead.
Absolutely. Picking up here, just reading how the people returned to favor in the wilderness.
Yes.
The same people that Moses prayed for and turned the wrath of the Most High away from these people. This is Numbers 16 and 3. And they gathered themselves together against Moses and against Aaron, and said unto them, Ye take too much upon yourselves, seeing all the congregation are holy, every one of them, and the Lord is among them. Wherefore then lift ye up yourselves above the congregation of the Lord. So they looked upon these men. They looked upon Moses and Aaron, men that prayed for them, men that saved their lives. They looked upon them with disgust. They looked upon these men as if, who are you to think that you're any more special than we are, when we're all special? We're all holy. We're all the children of Israel.
How many times we heard that? Y'all ain't the only one, Israel. The Most High ain't only dealing with you. Well, listen, who said that? We're just working. The work show forth who's working. You think you high-minded and no one can tell you? Listen, I'm not saying anything. I get advice all the time. The Bible says out of 1,000 counselors have one. No one can walk through this earth without someone whose opinion they respect outside of themselves. That makes for a bad leader. It's many days.
Absolutely.
It's many days. If me and the elders get off, I would say to lawyer, if something that I thought should have been said a certain type of way, I would be like, well, lawyer, We should have said it this way. He's like, oh yeah. And many times lawyer would get off the phone with me and says, well, elder, yeah, the next time we should do it this way. Right? I'm not sitting there banging the table. I'm a leader. Right? No, the Bible's how dare you tell me, give me some advice? Nah. Leaders, like we talk about Martin and all of them, they have circle of counselors, a trust circle, that people that they know genuinely care for them, who would never give them bad advice, who would never say something to them that could harm them. Okay? The Most High make leaders because they part of some of the greatness of these particular people where they were great listeners. And they understood the care and what it took to care for others by listening. Okay? I wanted to put that out there. But again, Moses, he prayed for the people who was actually plotting his demise in the wilderness, who couldn't stand his guts. After Moses did all this, left his position, elder lawyer, as Prince of Egypt.
Right. Right. Ain't that something?
He left his position as an authority over a superpower, folks. It would be the equivalent of the president or the vice president of the United States stepping down just to be a plebs amongst his people. Then he end up, after feeling for his people, end up slaying an Egyptian and fleeing into the desert, sacrificing for his people. Then came back years later with the name of God and led them out of captivity. And guess what, folks? Our people still had a problem with him. Lord have mercy. But go on, elder. What you have next?
Yes, sir. Last scripture, and you can elaborate. This is Matthew 21:31.
Yeah.
It says, whether of them twain did the will of his father? They say unto him the first. Yeshua saith unto them, verily I say unto you that the publicans and the harlots go into the kingdom of God before you. For John came unto you in the way of righteousness, and ye believed him not. But the publicans and the harlots believed him. And ye, when ye had seen it, repented not afterward, that ye might believe him. Here another parable. There was a certain householder which planted a vineyard, and digged and hedged it round about, and digged a winepress in it, and built a tower, and let it out to husbandmen, and went into a far country. And when the time of the fruit drew near, he sent his servants to the husbandmen, that they might receive the fruits of it. And the husbandmen took his servants, and beat one, and killed another, and stoned another. Again, he sent other servants, more than the first, and they did unto them likewise. But last of all, he sent unto them his son, saying, they will reverence my son. But when the husbandmen saw the son, they said among themselves, this is the heir. Come, let us kill him, and let us seize on his inheritance.
Go on.
And they caught him, and cast him out of the vineyard, and slew him. When the Lord thereof of the vineyard cometh, what will he do unto those husbandmen? They say unto him, he will miserably destroy those wicked men, and will let out his vineyard unto other husbandmen, which shall render him the fruits in their seasons. So I'm not sure if you have anything you want to elaborate on that, but my final point would be we could probably you can say that I wouldn't follow the words or the ideology of Martin Luther King. And I'll say, okay, fine. You can say I wouldn't follow the method or the teachings of Malcolm X, and I'll say, okay, fine. Okay, for whatever reason. But the question is, why did you reject Christ? Or why did you not follow Christ? Why do you not follow Christ? And I say that because, again, we find all of these excuses to point at the shortcomings of these men and say that because of this, I'm not going to follow what they brought forward.
Yeah.
And that's fine. I can respect that. But why do you reject Christ? For what purpose? And with that, I yield.
Elder Lawyer, on that point, why do you reject Christ? And on top of that, why do you reject Moses? That in of itself is the Holy Bible, the Old and New Testament. Why are we rejecting our book? The Torah, the prophets. Why? You will even have people today who claim that they follow the Torah, the Old Testament. Because even the Muslims claim that, well, listen, our book is built first off of the Abrahamic books of Moses. Well, why aren't you following Moses? Why are you treating God's people this way? Why are you going to push a religion that was first built on the bloodshed, in which what? Islam was proselytizing through the sword, aimed at our people. All right? So even amongst our community, there's Bibles everywhere, but none of us are actually living or treating each other based on the morality written within the pages. That's why. See? That's why the Bible is rejected. That's why the Old Testament is rejected amongst our people and others, as well as the New Testament. Why? Christ quantified it through this quote. I'm at Matthew 23 and 29, just a few verses. Woe unto you, scribes, and you Pharisees and hypocrites, because you build the tombs of the prophets. You like to spout out of your mouth acknowledging all the great ones who came before us. Oh, Martin Luther King Day, remember the dream. And garnish the scepters of the righteous. Oh, look at that big statue of Martin that was erected. Let's do a 6-gun salute in reverence of a man this government killed, whom of his own people rejected him to a degree where there's some would say, allegedly, it was his own people who set him up. Matthew 23 and 31, Christ reads, wherefore you be witnesses of yourselves that ye are the children of them which killed the prophets. He said, don't come and try to honor prophets when your actions is showing that if you were back then, you would have been on the other side killing those who stood for you. Now, why did Christ make these statements? Because if you respected the work people put in to sacrifice for you, it would show in your lives and how you treat each other now. It would show how you treat your fellow man. It would show, it would be life coming through our communities if we respected those who died for us to have an opportunity to do what? To show that we appreciated their service while on earth. And see, and this is why Christ was killed, because he shined a light on the hypocrisy of his own people. This ain't talking about the white man. We always use the white man to fall back on as a crutch while ignoring the evil we do in our communities that the white man have nothing to do with, things that we can actually control. We could control whether or not we sold drugs, crack, cocaine, and marijuana and mollies and all this other stuff. We could control whether or not we would sell that to our own people. We could control that. So that in of itself, Elder Lawyer, shows that even though we can look back on our prophets and all that, as a people, Christ would come back and say, you wouldn't have been on the side of those who stood for me. You would have you would have been in the mob who said, crucify me, because your actions would show if you appreciated my life given for you.
Right.
With that, Elder Lawyer, I'm going to tell you. Let me tell you, Elder Lawyer, I have my feet to the ground. A lot of people ask, why do I look into secular things and what's going on? Because why? Christ was amongst the publicans and the sinners. He wasn't so high that he could ignore what was affecting us on a grassroots level. I even looked into and I seen the shame about the thing that happened with Drake and the hot sauce thing. What society do we have, Elder Lawyer, where a woman feels she needs to do that to have security? Somebody somewhere went wrong with that little girl where she felt that she needed to get a turkey baster to have security in her life to get this man's seed and impregnate herself. What's going on the Drake side where he feel a need instead of marrying and bringing forth a legacy that he feel a need to just do what he want to do in the earth as if there won't be a judgment and put hot sauce, in a contraceptive to stop other women from stealing his seed. What world are we living in? It's a world that really doesn't appreciate the sacrifice that was done for them. People had to die for us to have the freedom to do what we're doing today. Somebody had to sacrifice for us to have the freedom to choose to do wrong. And guess what? There's no help in this society. It's going down. And what happens is at the end of it, Elder Lawyer, if we don't appreciate the leaders that are before us, that are guiding us, not to shower them with gifts, but to listen enough to do what? To repent and to fix your own life so that the Most High can shape you up to be a leader. Malcolm wasn't always a leader. He was a dope pusher on the street. He was pimping. He was doing all types of things. He was robbing houses. So a leader come from some of the most peculiar places. And it doesn't matter where we are and what condition we're in and what's going on with us. There was a statement that was made, and I have to highlight it. When we get in that room to ourselves, it doesn't matter what room, something was in the room before us. The Most High. It doesn't matter what room you're in. He was there before we got there. It doesn't matter if we was a robber, stiller, killer, dope fiend. And I'm looking at what's going on the ground and the choices we're making. We don't realize who's in the room with us. And in that room, a repentance could happen where we can change our lives and show the negative we did as an example. That no, I don't shy away from the negative things I used to be and what I did wrong. I highlight it as a place to show people that you don't have to be perfect to change. You don't have to be perfect to become a leader. And it's in every one of us. It's not just in one person. It's in every one of us. The Most High said our nation. He called us Israel, a prince of God. That we all are royalty. We all have a position if we're willing to what? Heed to our calling. Let's open up the lines. Elder.
If I can mention one last thing.
Yes.
One last thing. You just sparked something. You mentioned the Drake thing. It's my first time hearing about that, but it just sparked the question.
Yeah. So in a nutshell, we're living in a time where in the hip hop era, when it comes to the basketball thing and all that, there's women who was online bragging for years in the early 2000s that there was a turkey baster thing where they would deal with basketball players, athletes, and all that. What they would do is once the guy was asleep, they would go rummage into the trash, Lawyer, take a turkey baster to get the man's seed and place it in them. They would inseminate themselves. But by doing so, they can say, of course, they brought forth a child. Now they have $1 million baby. For 18 years, they'll live a life that wasn't afforded them as a groupie or living in the hood. So these are choices that our women actually are thinking about, because why? They don't see no other way out. Instead of us looking at, and what Martin Luther King said and what he was talking about was trying to make a society in which we wouldn't have to fall to such depths. When he talked about the economic portion, he foreseen if they didn't address us financially, he's seen a nation in worse trouble than the people he looked to lead and help. Right? So here it is. You have a thing now, basketball players and those who are looking to protect themselves now that it's public what women are doing out there, that now they're putting hot sauce and bleach or whatever just before they throw their whatever it is away. It's a little gross, but that's what they're doing to protect themselves from being locked into a situation that wasn't agreed upon for 18 years. And thinking about and that no one is thinking about the child they're bringing in this nonsense. It's all about money. It's all about being able to take care of ourselves or protecting our money. And that's why, Elder Lawyer, I have a lesson set up for this Sabbath called Socially Rich, Yet Spiritually Poor. Right now, as a people, we have more money in this society than we have ever had in the history of any civilization. And I'm going to go into that because we've learned to chase riches without understanding what being rich really is according to God. You can be filthy rich and miserable. And I'm going to go into that, socially rich yet spiritually poor. But go ahead, Elder Lawyer.
Yes, sir. I just had two questions just off of that point. First, dealing with in addressing Drake, and it's not a Drake bashing thing. I think he's a very talented young man. But what I do know of him is the fact that I believe it's his mother that is Jewish, correct?
Yeah. Yes.
So his mother is Jewish, which leads me to believe that he was probably raised with somewhat of I can only assume, some type of Jewish.
Yeah. Oh yeah. He was bar mitzvah. Yeah. He has a Jewish upbringing. Yeah.
Right. Now, bar mitzvah means to be a son of the commandments, means to be a son of the law. You're entering into the covenant. You're now accountable for keeping the commandments. So the first question is, for someone who is raised with the understanding of the commandments, I would have to ask him, why is it that he does not uphold those commandments as it pertains to how he deals with our people?
Okay.
But moreover, I think my question is the same thing that he gets away with when it comes to our people. Can he get away with the same thing? Could he do those same exact things in the Jewish community and his mother's side of the family and get away with it? And if he can't get away with it with that side of the family, how is it that we allow him to get away with it? Some of the exploits he deals with, how is it that we allow him to get away with it on the black side of the community?
Well, some would
things we know he could not get away with.
Elder, good question, but some would say this is what he was taught at his bar mitzvah.
Mm-hmm. Right.
Right?
Right.
Because don't forget, they have the breaking of innocence.
That's true. That's true.
The breaking of innocence, where usually they use one of our sisters and all that. And, there's a lot of stuff that I can't say here, but usually it be one of our sisters utilized in one of those breaking of purities. So we can't expect him to understand that when he get of age, it's for him to uphold the law. When at some of these parties, when they're turning to the age of accountability, some of these parties are no different to some degree than bachelor parties for them. So some can say that these parties they have and actually nurturing their sons into adulthood. Actually, really, I'm going to tell you right now, I'm trying to watch my words here. It's really to some degree, setting them up to understand the classes that they'll have to rule over when they come of age outside of college and school. Right? So they learned that at 13.
Absolutely.
When they learned that they are a higher class based on the actions of that night when it comes to what's the women they'll have access to. So that's why he can outright disrespect a black woman like that and not think twice about it, because it's the norm. It's the norm. But it's up to our sisters to hold themselves to a higher moral standard now.
That's right. Absolutely.
So that they're not shamed like this. Right? It's up to and guess what? That's her responsibility. We have to make it where it's not a circular thing where, well, it's the man's fault because there is no leaders. Nah. When you come of age as a woman, you understand right or wrong, and your choices are your choices, regardless of what a man does.
Absolutely.
The same thing with the man. We have to stop this thing where we're blaming each other while standing still without either of us correcting ourselves. Right? So that's what I was talking about when I talked about leadership. Martin Luther King said straight out, they never really addressed, Elder Lawyer, the economic lacking in our communities, that they can't really heal this without paying for what they've done against our people in what? In monetary gain, specifically for the people who built the country. And soon as he said that, there was a bullet, because Martin Luther King foreseen a society in which we were integrated into, but look at how immoral we would become being integrated into these people's liberal minds. At least we had some similitude of righteousness and a moral code within our society. So Martin Luther King understood also, if we don't have the economics to protect ourselves from this integration, eventually the integration will overtake the black people altogether. And that's where we are. Well, now we being ran by homosexuals, white liberals. This is what Martin Luther King feared, that we wouldn't have the money to defend ourselves. Money is a defense. And with money, you can buy security. And the government wasn't going to allow that. Well, I may be talking on some levels that people, right now, but it all comes down to, were we really listening to Martin Luther King outside of that dream speech? He had a lot to say that we need to go back and listen to. Some would say, and I'm going to tell you, listening to him, hey, I'm going to tell you right now, no one can say the Most High wasn't with Martin Luther King. Even in his era, he had a prophetic view of what's going to happen. Why? Because there was a genuine care for his people. And the Most High gave him a window into a future. But the future could not be solidified without them actually giving us money to make sure our people weren't impoverished. The government didn't pay for nothing. They didn't have to give us money. It didn't cost the Treasury anything to give us the right to vote, especially when they can control us. But I digress. Look at the rest of the video. No one can say that the Most High wasn't dealing with Malcolm X. No one can say that. All right, so let me call in real quick, Elder Lawyer, okay? And I'll get right back. All right?
Yes, sir.
Okay? I'll call you right back. Now, before I call in, let me just mention real quick that we do have a new Hebrew and Bible Academy. Okay? That Hebrew and Bible Academy will start February 6th, where we'll be going into new lessons. There's 4 gates that leads to different parts of the earth, and I'll be going into that when it comes to the gathering of God's people. These are the same gates that souls go through after death. I'll be discussing the gathering and what will take place, okay, in the academy. I'm also going to go into, a lot of brothers and sisters have really, gave high acclaim to our lesson, Finding the Ark of the Covenant. Well, what I'm going to show in some type of history that's out there, that the power of the Ark of the Covenant was used to power Egypt at one point, and I'm going to prove that. The greatest weapon, cleanest weapon known to mankind, find in the Ark of the Covenant where it is and how the Most High is going to give it back to us to protect us in the wilderness. You can't learn what we're going to bring forth in this academy, February the 6th, nowhere else on earth. Nowhere. It's quantified in lessons where we send you the email. You have all your literature before you. It's just like going to school, but I guarantee you, you'll understand this Bible like you've never understood it before. And guess what? You'll understand the Bible in 3 months greater than those who you came up under as pastors, preachers, or imams. You're going to find that these people were in place to actually stunt your growth in understanding the true narrative of the Bible. February 6th, you don't want to miss it. If you're interested, go to historytimes.org. Okay? It's 3 months of serious information. Elder Lawyer with the Hebrew, myself, and Shapat comes in with real-time news, and boy, do we have news. And I have news for Patreon that I can't even talk about right here this coming Friday, so you must be there. But after that, you click the button, you're in the class with us with your lesson in front of you, and guess what? The literature you have, you can add it to your library to further your understanding of our book, the Holy Bible. Go to historytimes.org and enroll. It's 3 months, and it only costs $150. Okay, we never went up on price because we want to make sure that this 3 months is affordable. Okay, it's affordable. So it's $150 for 3 months, more understanding of the Bible, and now you're no longer under theologian control. The lies that the Roman Catholic Church and the Jesuits and the apologetics brought to our communities to keep us spiritually controlled. No longer do you have to worry about that. Your minds will be set free. Go to historytimes.org. Hope to see you there in our first lesson. That's right, the creation of the universe. All right, let's go. Let's go. Let's see. All right, let's call in.
Blog Talk Radio. Welcome to Blog Talk Radio. Please hold and you will be able to listen to the show.
Okay.
Unmuted.
Okay, I'm now unmuted. Thank you, brothers and sisters, for your participation. We're not going to be here all night. We end at 10 o'clock, so I'm jumping right in. Lawyer, you can turn on your video at any time, if you may. All right.
Yes, sir.
So let's go through the call. The title of our show, our blog tonight is, do we appreciate our leaders' sacrifice? Is the question. You don't have to answer the question. If you have any other questions or comments, we're open for those as long as it's done in a timely fashion. Okay. Okay. So we're not going to keep it specifically with the topic, but if you want to do so and chime in on exactly what we're talking about, we welcome the dialogue. 210 area code. Dawada.
Shalom, Elder. I appreciate it.
Bless you, Dawada. The floor is yours.
So, I mean, I would just say that, sticking with the topic, I would say that, I guess it really depends on who your leader was growing up. I know that, I know for me specifically that, like, I was raised in a relatively decent home. But I would say that, you know, out of all the people that I hung around with, I was the only person that had their mother and father still married. And I'm not that old. I'm 33 years old, but I think that statistically, when we look at society in America, and it's 83% of black families that have no fathers in the home, I think that's the problem. I think that's the disconnect.
Okay, so you say that's the problem when it comes to, do we appreciate our leaders? So what you're saying is
Correct,
the fact that there's no example of a leader in the home, it skews someone's view in trusting or even understanding how to respect the leader because they haven't seen that dynamic within their own upbringing.
Correct.
Well, under some circumstances, because what I've seen is a lot of brothers and sisters who are in the truth, right? I've seen people who didn't grow up with parents, and they are strong leaders. But at some point in their life, they must experience. There have to be an adult that they were able to respect as a mentor, right? So I feel for this generation. I see what you're saying, Dawada. I'm going to tell you why I'm looking at both sides of this, right? I feel for this generation because we had many mentors. Like, I can look back at my English teacher in high school, right? Mrs. Dunn. I can look back at Mr. Cherrier, who was my trumpet teacher when I was doing music in junior high school. I can look at my basketball coach, Mr. Mathis. I mean, we had so many strong people, traditional people in leadership roles growing up, where it extended not just from our homes and our churches, but when we went to school. So I feel for this generation. So there was many areas in which we could find that adult that did what? That demanded the respect a leader should have. Teachers were considered leaders, but go on. But what I'm saying is, what I don't want is to give people an out because they didn't have the same upbringing as others. Right?
Yeah, Con. And I was going to my second point because I feel like I'm going to use the city of Chicago for just an example purposes, right?
Yeah.
We can't, society can't blame the white man that a whole bunch of our brothers and sisters out there killing each other left and right, right? They can't sit there and say, "Oh, this is a Trump issue. It's a Biden issue. It's a white man in a or Democrat Republican issue." It's not, right? Yeah. So what it really does boil down to a choice. And so, like, for what I chose to do, right? When a brother came to me and talked to me about this truth, I had a choice. I could have said, "Nah, I'm all good, brother. That's not really where I'm moving right now," or I had an opportunity to follow Christ. So my choice was to follow Christ. And I feel like if more brothers and sisters were more receptible to the positive aspects of life as opposed to the negative aspects of life, that's like me saying, "Oh, elder, your haircut looks amazing today," right? And then another brother says, "Oh, man, you're right. It absolutely does." And then a person comes by and says, "Oh, but you're not wearing a mask." The general consensus is going to be, now elder's not wearing a mask. So let's focus on the negative as opposed to saying, "Nah, the brother got a nice haircut, man. His lips are all point, his lineup's all extra fresh, his hair's all slicked back, looking good." We're going to focus on the negative. And I think that's the problem with society, is that everybody's too focused on the narratives as opposed to being free-minded and wanting to think for themselves, seeing life as a glass half full.
You know what, brother? That is a great point. It seems like if we were to poll people in general, our people or any people in general, the majority of the people usually view life as the glass half empty.
It's true.
You know what? That's wisdom right there. It does. And sometimes we have to get them to a point where it was like, nah, things are not that bad. It depends on what we choose to focus on. There's many things, there's many blessings in life that we can appreciate if we're willing to focus on the blessings the Most High have bestowed upon us. But we've allowed the system to have us see everything from a negative. Great point. Great point. Thank you, my brother. Great point.
Water.
All right. That would always bring some good stuff. Lenora, 302 area code.
Shalom.
Shalom. How are you, Lenore? The floor is yours.
I'm blessed. I was calling because, first of all, I want to acknowledge all the leadership in my life, the male leadership in my life, from Ahia, Yeshaya, and all the elders of GOCC. I'm grateful. My husband, and I just wanted to call just to make a comment because I believe my husband and I are ready to become members and be baptized. The Most High has gotten us ready.
Praise the Most High. Where you? It looks as if you're calling from California.
No, I'm calling from Delaware.
Oh, Delaware. So you're right here. I can have Bishop Amoth actually call you up to set up a gathering so you can come with us, right? You can come and get baptized with you and your family.
Yeah.
All right. Let me write your number down. A matter of fact, I'll text him. I'll text him real time. Do you have anything you would like to say outside of that?
I had a question that's been pressing on me that I've been forgetting to ask you.
Okay.
I wanted to know the scripture that talks about the 10% versus, the 1/3.
Okay.
Because I kept forgetting to find out where that scripture is.
Okay, one moment. Let me give that to you. Elder Lawyer, you have that offhand, or you want me to pull it up? Where it says it will be left a 10th.
Yes, sir. You can start at Isaiah 6 and 10.
Isaiah 6
on
and
down.
It started Isaiah 6 and 10 on down, sister, where it says there will be left a 10th. Right?
Okay, I'm going to my...
Yeah.
Okay.
So what's happening is that you have a lot of brothers out there, UPK and others, who are teaching that there'll be 2/3 cut off, like it's written of in the Old Testament. As a matter of fact, let me get that real quick. I think it's Zechariah 13, where it says the 2/3. And really, they're not absolutely wrong. Where they're going wrong at, where it says 2/3 shall be cut off and die. It's just the timing of things is where they're getting it incorrect, right? Because there will be left. Let me get it real quick. Let me get it real quick. One moment here. It's just the chronology of it is what they're getting wrong. Not wrong, but they just need to understand the chronological order of the 10th and the 2/3. Okay. One moment. Let me get it. Let me get it here. This is weird.
It's 13:8.
Yeah, two parts. Zechariah 13 and 8, it says, "Awake, O sword, against my shepherd, and against the man that is my fellow, saith the Lord of hosts. Smite the shepherd, and the sheep shall be scattered." And that's another reason why they look to destroy leaders, because then people have no one who could protect and guide them. It says right here, "And I will turn mine hand upon the little ones, and it shall come to pass that in the land, saith the Lord, 2 parts therein shall be cut off and died." Zechariah 13 and 8. "But the 3rd shall be left therein." So you have to realize that the 10th, it's speaking of our people within the earth in of itself, right?
Okay.
90% due to disobedience in the war will be cut off when it comes to the children of Israel. Only a 10th. Don't forget, it was a 10th that was paid to Melchizedek, Shem, by Abraham. It was a 10th because of that the Most High instilled within his law that the priest should receive a 10th. So when it comes down to it, throughout all of the earth, only a 10th, it's going to decide to follow the Most High at the very end and will be preserved for the wilderness. Now, when Christ returned, there will be a purging. Because there was what? Mutiny in the wilderness. Okay? So the other Israelites are correct when they say 2/3 shall be cut off, but that's talking about in the wilderness when Ezekiel the 20th chapter talks about the rebellion in the wilderness. So even though a 10th will be preserved, 1/3 will make it out of that trying in the wilderness. See? So the 10th is talking.
And I have one other question.
Yeah. So in a
sorry,
nutshell, let me quantify it. The 10th is talking about
Okay.
the Israelites throughout the earth that will be preserved through the war and all those things that's coming. Like that number is coming down right. That number is actually happening right now with the solutions they're telling people to get and all that. It's bringing those numbers down where that 90% is being taken. Eventually, there will be a 10th that will be left for the wilderness. And then the purging in the wilderness where the rebels happen, 2/3 of our people will be destroyed. And Christ will have 1/3 go in to Israel, the promised land. Got it? Okay, what is the next question?
The next question is, when Christ comes back and he begins to teach during the millennial, and I hope I'm saying this right.
You mean during the 1,000-year reign, in a nutshell? It begins.
Yes. Now, what about the dead that are already dead? When they talk about the dead in Christ shall rise, do they have an opportunity to learn?
Well,
or do they have a chance to repent?
Well, listen, there's two things there. The first thing is the first resurrection. The first resurrection is when Christ returns. It says, blessed are they in Revelations 20 that make it in the first resurrection, where the second death have no power. So we want to be those that are in the earth, and those that are being brought up from the bosom of Abraham is the first resurrection. The final judgment is at the end of the 1,000 years. These are they who were in the ground, in Hades, waiting judgment for the final judgment. That's the second death.
Okay.
These are they who will be judged out of the records and thrown into the fire with the fallen ones who led mankind astray. So we must make it in the first resurrection. The second death are all those who will be destroyed at the very end of Christ's reign. Okay?
Okay.
You got it?
Thank you. My husband said hi.
Tell him said hello. What is his name?
Sam.
I hope to meet you. Hope to meet you soon, Sam. You're not too far away, so I hope to meet you all in the Philly congregation. Okay.
Yes.
Okay.
Likewise.
Bless you.
Thank you, Elder.
You're welcome. Let me place you on hold. We have Stan who have a comment. 281 area code. Hey, Stan.
Shalom, Elder.
Shalom. The floor is yours.
I just wanted to comment because this topic is so deep. You have to apologize for any while I'm at that's disturbing. But it's amazing because I was just talking to my elder not too long ago when it comes to how much I honor him, because I lived my life always in this state of mind of honor and upholding myself to a certain code. And a lot of people never could understand why I viewed myself this way, especially being in like a martial art background. But when you look throughout history and look at warriors like knights and samurais and even different assassins and stuff like that, when they had their leaders that they were under, called them lords, they honored them to such an extent to where it was their motivating. It's kind of hard to quantify into words, but you honor them to such a point to where I see why the Bible says they're like fathers to those of us in the flock. And it's very sad to see how much our people just don't honor the sacrifice that comes with being in that position. To give up everything to lead the Most High's flock. That should humble you just at that aspect alone when you look at this person or these individuals on what they have to do in life to do what the Most High called them. I told my elder the other day, I feel what it feels when the knights and the samurai used to submit themselves wholly unto the Lord that they were serving under. to see what they had to do to please the Most High by doing His work. I just want to serve. It literally provokes me to serve and want to do, and encourages me to just make that burden on them lighter.
Thank you. Well, brother,
and to see the
brother, it's one thing that you pointed out, and I had to write it down because this is how I get topics and topics to build on. Those men you were talking about that once had honor, it was one thing that they understood, and I think you're quantifying it. That shame was equal to death to them. That's how high honor was, and getting in good graces and staying there with those who've actually sold in them. And if they dishonored that, it was a shame that was equal to death, and that's what's missing amongst our community. We don't know the concept of honor, and we don't feel what we need to feel when we are in shame. But great point. But go on.
It goes so deep, and I'm going to be very quick with it, as quick as I possibly can.
Yeah.
It goes so deep because that shame. So, me personally, when I slip up.
Yeah.
Whenever I've slipped up, that shame is what keeps me from falling back into that.
Yeah.
That shame of having to come back to the Shabbat and see these great men of stature that I honor and respect and would lay down my life for. That shame produces such a spirit in me. You really feel like death is better than this. It's better to just be out of this world. Let the Most High call me out of this, than to look at these great men who have sacrificed, travel across the world, have to die daily just to do the Most High's work, to show us what it's like, especially young men like me, what it's like to live in Christ and to I mean, it's just that shame. You hit the nail on the head so much with that. Because I have a very, very heavy conscience. So when I mess up, it's like a depression that comes over you. That's shame. You don't want to be...
Brother, I can relate. It's like when you... And we understood this as a people in the Old Testament, where we would rip our clothes in shame and sackcloth. That's what that was talking about. Where we understood that when we dishonored the Most High and those in position, we understood that when we did that, those actions were in the presence of God. For some reason, our people have relegated their conscience to a degree where they believe the Most High is absent. He's still in the room. It's just that the people have checked out. But man, great call, brother. You quantify this, and I think this particular call will help people understand the gift that comes with honor. And I'm going to say, I'm going to let you get the last word. I'm going to let you get the last word. Some people to a degree, and some people to a degree think that something is going on when I have elder lawyer there and I'm speaking, that something is happening where he's under some trance where he can't say anything. Nah, what elder lawyer always understood,
honor,
is respect and honor. And what he feel is if it's being said by the elder, why should I chime in, right? And it's to the degree where I have to look at him and say, elder, you want to bring something? But if what's being said is needed, why do we feel a need to say anything? That's wisdom in of itself, right? But it still comes with the respect and honor that he'll always have, understanding that first interaction and what was sold into him. That someone took a personal care for him and said, you know what? And this is what I was thinking too. Listen, all this stuff the Most High the Most High have instilled in me to understand. I can't be the only one around here with this information. I'm going to have to download this into somebody. Right? You always have to have somebody where if they are respectful enough to appreciate what you're going to do for them. When you find that person, you have to know that, listen, anything can happen. But I got to make sure that all this stuff that the Most High have given me, that it don't stop with me. Because suppose something happens. So one thing I wanted to make sure is that, yeah, exactly. But he appreciated that. But go on.
Man, oh man, I just want to thank you once again for this topic. Every time you bring out a topic and it compels me to call in, I just feel so, I just praise the Most High. But I wanted to leave it with this note. I encourage people to go and look up the era of Nobunaga and the Edo period, and look up the times of medieval times and how these warriors served fully because how much they honored the work that was going forward, the mission that was at hand. They understood that the mission was so imperative that this person chose to lead this movement is truly ordained by something higher than himself. And it compelled them to honor themselves to this mission, even unto death.
Yeah.
The samurais, knights, ninjas, all of these other, you watch the movies and all that, but look up the history and how much honor it takes to fully submit and humble yourself.
Yeah.
So I rest on that. I rest on that.
Hey, brother, and I'm gonna, of course, you can rest on that. There's many things you can say because I love your humility, but all in all, it's like this, brother. And I grew up in the arts and dealing with it, and understand that this is why when we grew up, there was something about those old karate flicks.
Oh yeah.
let me tell you something. I used to wonder, but guess what? I grew up respecting the honor that came in with all those old Shaolin flicks and all that. What those young people who were trying to learn from the teacher were willing to sacrifice to show their honor just to learn one move. And I remember, listen, when I'm gonna tell you, sometimes one day we're gonna sit around and eat and drink. Sometimes it's like us being around a barbecue and just talking. Listen to me, my brother. I remember first coming into the truth, and there was a guy by the name of Haradapia, right? Now he was a guy that managed me when I was 14, and I was in a group, and he was a young guy working in New York with the record companies, and he was managing me. I find him about 7 years later, he got fringes on and all this other stuff on, right? Living back in Philadelphia. His name was Ed Ndafo. I end up coming into a room where these guys are teaching. Johanna came down, but it was Haradapia who I was familiar with because he used to manage me. So he had a place. Listen to it. Going back to the old karate flicks, right? He had a place, my brother, right off of Venango Avenue where we had to go and learn during the week because there was classes only a few days a week on Cheltenham. Now, check out what my duty was, not knowing what I know now. My duty was to go to the store, get Chinese food, if they wanted some other food, as long as it was kosher, I would bring it to them, get sodas and all these things. And then you in a relationship and the person you're with, your wife, whatever, looking at you like, why are you doing that for all these men, right? Right? Because other people are looking at outside like it's some level of weakness, right? Thank you. Here's the point I wanted to make, brother. One day I got frustrated because, of course, people around you saying, you're doing all this stuff for these guys. Who are these guys? And I get frustrated. I'm a young man, right? And then Doc called me up the stairs and said, Rakar. I'm like, yes, sir. I mean, after they done made junk all over the place, Rakar, I need you to sweep up. I need you to start upstairs and work your way downstairs. Now I'm feeling like my manhood is being challenged, right?
Right.
But then I'm like, man, listen, Because every time I come there, brother, I'm looking to learn another scripture or precept. And you know what Doc told? This is what Doc told me. He said the discipline of listening to what we're telling you and the care you take in going to the store and sweeping up and doing what we need to do will be the same mindset that you'll need to learn the book.
Amazing.
And when he said, when he said that, it took me back to the karate flicks. What he was telling me, brother, you already learning. But if you go to the store and get something wrong, you're not going to pay attention when I say this precept goes after that precept. So you're already being tested. So go sweep the floor.
That's deep. That's deep.
Thank you, my brother.
Shalom.
Shalom. Bless you. Bless you.
On note of that, two movies that come to mind is the 36 Chambers of Shaolin.
Yeah.
Shaolin versus Wu-Tang. Y'all go look that up and see the discipline and humility that our elders talking about right now in those kung fu flicks.
Oh, you know what?
Love y'all. Shalom.
You know what? I'm going to pull that up tonight. I remember that one. Thank you, my brother. Yeah. All right.
Shalom.
Shalom. All right. We have Lisa who has a comment and question. We're going to stay on for another 30 minutes, okay?
Shalom, Elder. How are you?
I'm doing well. Bless you. How are you?
I am doing well as well, sir. Thank you so much for this timely broadcast. I was just having a conversation with the sister Jess last night on this topic.
Yeah.
And I wanted to say, Elder, if no one has ever told you, I appreciate you and the elders of the body of JCC.
Thank you.
Because all praises to the Most High, He allowed you and through His Spirit used you to wake me and my family up. I was on my way speaking in tongues straight to hell in the church. And had it not been for this truth, I don't even want to know where I would be today. So I really, really appreciate the elders of the body and the leadership. And I thank God for Ahaya, for my foundation of the church, because it gave me the respect for leadership. That's the one thing I did get out of the church, is that respect for leadership. That foundation gave me that respect that a lot of people seem to have lost today. The respect, the accountability, the love, the trust with our own people. It's gone. Unfortunately, it's gone. And in this, my husband and I, as you know, in our business, we've been in business now almost 15 years doing this thing. We've been able to hire 105 persons from the body.
Praise the Most High.
But in all praises to the Most High, but in that first week, we went through something where we were not sure we were going to continue doing it with the body, because we went through a situation where someone tried to destroy our company. And it's our own. So
what you mean it was your own? What? Give me some insight. You talking about?
I don't want to go into too much.
So it was it was our own people trying to get in the way of us employing others. Man, we really have to stop this.
People someone that we brought on to work for us tried to destroy us by doing something behind our back, thinking it would bring our company down.
Lord.
And that's all I want to say about it, because I don't want to put any life to it.
Yeah.
And we've never had that, because we have people that are Esau working for us as well, and it only happened when we started opening up to our people our people. So, but we kept pushing through, and this was a conversation I had yesterday, my husband and I. We just said we'll just continue to do it. So that gave me the appreciation for the elders and leadership. I'm not putting you on a plateau of Martin Luther King, but in leadership, what you guys go through and the blood, sweat, and tears you sacrifice for this truth, and your sacrifice for even your families that you might not even have time to spend for your families and with your families for this truth for us on a consistent basis. I really, really appreciate that. I always appreciated it, but now that we're in this situation of bringing people on,
Yeah.
I never appreciated it more. Let me say it like that.
Yeah.
Because I understand what you guys go through
Well,
on a daily basis.
sister, I would like to say this though, right? This is why when businesses are set up, you have HR and you have an ethics agreement that usually employers sign into, right? Because usually people don't understand the ethical part of business relationships, right? And so what I find is, not giving our people excuses, but they're not held to the same contracts when they're brought on under us, where we must put their ethics or their lack thereof on paperwork to make sure that they won't do certain things. Why? Because they'll get offended. But we have to make sure that we look into the ethical part of it and make that part of any agreement so that they'll know up front what we will not be tolerating. You're not going to come in and destroy something that you didn't build. I'm here to help you.
Yes.
But here's the paperwork when it comes to ethics. Every company has it. It's to the point where, but if we talk about it, what you trying to accuse me? What you think? Nah. Because people come into other companies and they'll get ideas they didn't have before and set up their own business. So this is what people do. It doesn't matter what your color is out there, whether or not you're black, white, Chinese. If you give someone an opening where they're not liable to do something wrong, they're going to take advantage. So all I'm saying is, if you're going to run a company, you have to deal with the ethical part of it and to make sure that you are protected and those that are coming in automatically understand where the boundaries are. Because under a capitalistic society, when people see a window where they're not liable and can't get sued, they're going to capitalize. So I'm just putting that out there for you. And you just got to protect yourself.
Yes, sir.
It's just business. It has nothing to do with whether or not it's our people. It's business. And our people sometimes find the loophole. Okay? So I'm just saying that. But sister, I really appreciate you.
And final question, just a quick question.
Yeah.
In reference to segregation, do you think segregation was a good thing? Segregation was a good thing.
I believe that if they would have agreed with Martin Luther King's second leg of the plan, that segregation would have been fine. Because why? We would have had the finances to protect ourselves from whatever trickery they may have come up with. So it wasn't a one-part thing with segregation. They made that as the goal, when really there was another plan after that to make sure our people would be restored through reparations. The financial leg would have protected where we could have benefited from segregation, because the white people would have had to come into our stores. There would be no room for regentrification of our neighborhoods because we would have owned the neighborhoods. See? So it would have worked if they would have allowed the second part of the plan to come into fruition. You just can't have an overarching plan from the beginning, because economics is not the place where they would have allowed us initially. So what he was thinking was the political portion. Let us get ourselves in political positions to protect ourselves, then come in with the financial piece to protect ourselves. Now we have the politicians we can pay in position. On top of that, we can own our neighborhoods instead of public housing, and we don't have to, and we have enough money to pay for our defense like Chinese people do in Chinatown. So really what you have is diplomatic immunity within a country, just like a foreigner would have when it comes to certain areas belonging to China. Even though it's America, it's diplomatic immunity where that's really an extension of your homeland. Martin Luther King foreseen all that. It's just that if they weren't going to do the financial piece, there would be no need. There shouldn't have been no segregation. We should have stayed. Excuse me. We should have stayed segregated if they weren't going to give us the finances to protect our people from the white people on the other side of the tracks who were dealing with all type of liberal craziness. It wasn't just the righteous right-wing whites that we had to fear. It was the crazy white liberals on drugs and the meth heads of the Woodstock white crazy liberal people were the ones that would be a threat to our morality. So we weren't integrating with the white races. We were integrating with the crazies amongst their people. All right. So.
Right. Well, Elder, thank you for that. I appreciate that. Like I said, also check out, have you ever seen the movie on Netflix, Wild Wild Country? Did you see that one?
What is it called?
Wild Wild Country. It's about a cult, but what I took from it is it's a series. They actually created their own city with their own water supply, their own banks. They had ATM cards, debit cards, food, everything. They didn't need the outside world, but they were a cult. They were crazy.
Whoa.
But I was just saying that to say it was amazing back then how those people were allowed to do that. But, they were destroyed afterwards because. So
keep in mind, anyone that set up a self-sufficient community outside of the controlling structure is considered cult.
Yeah.
Because only the controlling society from Rome, from Europe, can set up towns within America and not be called cult. They're called settlers. But all in all, it's a pipe dream, and it's a series to only put negative connotation on those who are looking to be self-sufficient. We're not going to be self-sufficient, sisters and brothers, until the wilderness. And at that point, we'll be protected for a time. But then after that, when the war break out in the Middle East, the fallout is going to be so grave on them. And people are going to be shot up with all types of stuff and all that stuff, where they're going to be out of their minds. By the time they get the boosters near the war, these people are not even going to be people no more. They're going to be walking zombies trying to get rid of us. But I'm going to be talking about that in the judgment of the Gentiles, the judgment of the nations in the academy, how they're going to zombify the whole world that's going to come against us in the wilderness. So, that's when we're going to have our own. All right.
Well, sir, thank you again. And I'll just say to our people, let's just get ourselves together, because it doesn't matter where we are. If we're not right, we're going to take the same foolishness to the wilderness and be cut off.
Right.
So
Great
use this
point.
time to work on ourselves, get ourselves together, start loving each other again, supporting each other again, trusting, accountability. That's the one thing I do miss from our people. We really need to
you know what,
together.
Sister, I'm going to tell you, I'm going to place you on hold. But Lisa, I'm going to tell you, thank you for this, place you on hold. There's still hope in our people. There's still love in our people. And until the very end, it isn't over. It isn't over. There's a chance for a large number of our people to really, look deep into themselves and become who the Most High meant them to be. And I have hope that our people can turn around, that can change. Oh, yeah, on another note, I'm going to go into this on the Patreon, the fact that China, they're going to claim everything is China right now. And even though it's the Satanists from Rome and all that, and that are really setting up laboratories in China, okay? So when they tell you China is doing this and China is doing that, that's a misdirection. It isn't China at all. It's the same controlling body using China as a proxy. So when they say China's doing this outlandish thing, China is the cover, folks. Anyway, China, the Satanists who's using China as a proxy are looking to hatch a dinosaur embryo. They even had pictures of it and all that, where, that's right. As in the days of Noah, they're not prehistoric animals at all. These are the animals the Most High killed in the flood. They are about to let dinosaurs loose on land. I'll be going into that and more this coming Friday. Great call, Sister Lisa. That's a good segue. I only got about 15 minutes, so let's just go through. We have Zamar. Then after that, Danita. Zamar. I already brought in Stan, so I got him. Zamar.
Hey, Shalom. I have a question pertaining to the academy.
Yes, sir.
For an example, so if I were to have notes on who is Edom, and someone were to ask me about Esau, and then I have my notes to like explain to them, okay, well, this is Edom, and I have like, oh, okay, the notes. But would that be considered stealing because those are the notes that you gave us, or would that
Oh
be
no, brother.
Listen,
no, when we say that you're supposed to keep the material for yourselves, it's talking about the material in of itself as far as not circulating it or publishing the information, as long as you're not sending it to no one else. But what you learn from the academy, you can open it up and teach someone from it.
Okay, Con. And my second question as well.
I mean, no, we're not censoring what you can teach out of it. I mean, if you learn it and people ask you, give it to them. Give them the information. Give them the historical data. Give them the understanding to be able to teach them in the Bible the truth. And then, if it helped you, suggest that they come into the academy to get the information. Or so all right.
Con. Secondly, also from the Who is Edom on the PDF. They were talking about the giants, and I wanted to ask you, how tall were the Anakims, like the giants? How tall were they?
Well, the
Book of Deuteronomy.
Well, the Bible tell you that sometimes when it comes to how we were describing things, it could be a little exaggerated. Like when we came into the city, and he's like, "Man, we were like grasshoppers." But really, when you look at it, the tallest were they were up there. They're about between 17 to 20 feet. But when we looked at how tall they were, we was like, yo, we're grasshoppers compared to them. So yeah, it was about between 18 to 20 feet for some of the bigger ones.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah. A matter of fact, I don't know if you're going to be in the next academy, but we're going to actually show the archaeology that was covered up, not just here in America, but that they showed some of the giants who were covered in mud from the flood. And they started resurfacing some of these skeletons. Now, some of what they resurfaced before the flood, brother, we're talking about what? Whew. We're talking about 40 feet before the flood, 50 feet. where when they open up the ground, the person next to the Nephilim head was small in comparison to just the skull. You can see it from a bird's eye view where this guy was just small next to the head, and the body took up like a mass part of the land. So these pre-flood Nephilim, man, they were like 40, 50 feet. And there's archaeological proof on this that the world powers are hiding. Okay, why? Because if they don't hide it, then we'll have to go into the validity of the Bible when it talks about the Nephilim and why the Most High had to destroy this earth through a flood. It was no 100 billion years ago for dinosaurs. Dinosaurs were actually cross-spliced and made. It tells us this in the book of Joshua as well as the book of Enoch, and the Bible goes into it. All right, so we're going to be talking about that week 3 of the Hebrew Bible Academy, tracing the serpent seed. So, all right, and we're going to give you the historical proof of everything I'm saying here. Okay. Ayinda Bar, and thank you, brother, for being a part of this. All right. Okay. All right. Let me place you on hold. All right. We have Sam with
Muted.
Okay, that's me. I'm putting on hold. What's going on? That's me.
Unmuted.
I'm muting myself. Hold on. I'm back. Danita. Okay, we have 10 minutes before this broadcast conclude. Great show. No overkill. I expect you all in the Hebrew and Bible Academy, February the 6th. And our new calendar is ready. So the calendar for the year that gives you the correct holy days, you can go to gatheringofchrist.org and put in your pre-orders. You need that calendar, and I'm going to actually be able to, next week, next Wednesday, I'll be able to show you, folks, the cover in the inside of the new calendar. So it's going to be outstanding. All right. Danita, the floor is yours.
Shalom, elders. I just wanted to, I had a comment, and I just wanted to answer the questions for tonight.
Okay.
Do we appreciate a leader?
Yeah.
And I feel like, I think Israel is split on that, meaning, you got a lot of people that do appreciate what's been, taught to us and what's been brought forth. Like you said, a lot of us had teachers growing up. We had gym teachers. We had music teachers, stuff that we remember people teaching us how to be respectful, appreciative, humble. Like we were taught as children grown into adults how to respect one another. But I feel like along the way, some of us lost that and we just forgot how to, or some of us just had that, they feel like they're entitled. So we got some people that's entitled, or they just feel the need to be appreciated and they want to be first instead of respecting those who went forth ahead of them. And I just, in my generation, I'm an 87's baby. So I respect those who brought things forth before me. And, as the brother was talking about earlier about what it meant to honor those ahead of you, you submitted yourself and you was willing to serve that leader or that teacher in a way that you did not want to disappoint them. So it's just that we forgot how to humble ourselves and submit and just serve and just to take that burden off of our leader so that they wouldn't have so much to worry about or so much to think about. We just wanted to be that humble student. So just that, like our people just forgot that, and we just ready to cancel and cut off, and we just ready to just move that person out the way. I'm first. Yeah. And we just forgot that this person that's doing all the work, like you said, it's not so much the one that's talking in the background, it's the one who is putting in the work. Yeah. So we just forgot to respect that and just humble ourselves. So I just yield with that.
Well, thank you. And it's one thing you brought out. Okay, move the people who are working out of the way and replace them with what? See, and that's the issue. That's the issue, right? And one thing I've learned, and there was a song by Donny Hathaway that quantifies what I'm about to say, where he had a song called Change. Nothing stays the same. Mm-hmm. And what I've learned, and I can understand that, our people are used to getting and used to doing, we're creatures of habit, and we don't like much change. And one thing I realize, and I can't apologize for, is that what? Nothing stays the same. And I cannot become the idea of what people see in me. Some people make an idea of who I am, and what they do is they just want to hold on to that when I'm only being guided by the Holy Spirit to do what the Most High is directing me to do. And when I leave that archetype or the idea of what you had of me, even though I'm not going against the Most High, automatically, because we're creatures of habit, we'll say something must be changing. Something must be wrong. Well, no. I can't control how one perceives me. Nothing stays the same. And I'm going to go as the Most High guide me to get to his people. Not meaning to offend anyone, but as I get older, I'm going to change. I'm not going to be the video you seen 15, 20 years ago, even though I'm still that guy. So what I'm saying is, when it's a time, there's a time for all things under heaven. I have enough wisdom and understanding to know when it's time for the next phase, to get to as many people as possible. And the way I did it 10, 15 years ago, even though I love the greatness looking back, even on the streets, I think there was greater teachings before there was YouTube that people have never seen. But all in all, people have a perception, not realizing that, listen, a leader can only be, it's the spirit of a leader who's guided by something greater than themselves and the people who are actually viewing them. And that's with any leader.
Yeah.
Okay. So and that's the whole thing. And that's the, I would say, difficult part of trying to lead or help our people, is because you cannot satisfy everyone's view of you. You want everyone to be happy. You want everyone to know that, listen, I'm the good guy. I'm on your side. But it's just impossible. You understand? It's beyond our control. True. All right. Thank you, my sister. Great call.
And I just want to say, elders, that, for all the deacons, the elders, and me and my husband, my family, we appreciate y'all, and y'all just changed our life for the best. And like you said, that, some people have that jealousy and they look at y'all like, you put yourself on a pedestal, but some people just appreciate the work you done. And thank you, brothers.
Thank you. I appreciate it. Well, thank you, sister. Thank you. Thank you. And we have some great calls. I'm sorry, I only have about 3 more minutes. I'll take as many calls. I don't know. I don't want to go over because, I really want this broadcast in itself to resonate without overkill. So unfortunately, I know we have a few other people. I'll open up the calls this Friday for Patreon. I'll take a few calls on A Gathering first, then segue to Patreon for those who didn't have an opportunity to have their say, okay? So I will open it up before going to Patreon. So even if you're not Patreon members, the first 15, 20 minutes of our update, I'm going to open up this line so that we can continue from here and then go into our, man, I have some stuff on Patreon, folks, what some doctors are saying. You have to hear what's going on in some of these hospitals, but I can't say it right now. Be there for Patreon this coming Friday. Sam, he's our last call for this evening. Sorry I didn't get a chance to get to you, Sunshine, but I'm sure just keep your copious notes. And when you come in this coming Friday, I'll bring you in first. I apologize, okay? I seen you waiting there. All right, Sam, you're the last call for this evening.
Blessings, Elder, and I'm grateful to you all. You, Brother Elder, Brother Garar, and the rest of people who walk in all aspects, because this truth is not just a one-man thing. This is a collective thing. So on that note, I am grateful and thankful. But speaking on our people not appreciating the leaders, I think, because Elder, I dabble in writing.
But when I said that, I need us to really put it into a right frame of reference. If we appreciated what Martin Luther King did and what Malcolm did, it would show in our society.
Correct.
And it would show. It's like, did these men put their lives on the line for the debauchery, the drug dealing, the disrespect of family, the immorality that's being exhibited right now? Did Christ, the greater man, Christ, did he die for people to become worse? So that's really why I was putting it out there, appreciating leaders. I didn't want to segue it to people just saying, thank you, Elder, thank y'all for whatever. Nah, it's about, listen, the best way of showing your appreciation for those who are willing to sacrifice their lives for you is you as an individual sacrificing something for the embetterment of our people. That's the best way to appreciate it. Not just in word, but fixing our people. And all of us have an individual hand in that. But go on.
Correct. And that's really what I was going to allude to. And thank you for bringing that point, because I think it puts it in a better perspective for us all who are in this struggle to try to live a life, that's pleasing to a Heavenly Father. So in that retrospect, to look at it, I think for us as a people in that retrospect is when we look at things, especially for the people who will call our leaders, because I think, for me today, what I come to understand and know is it's not more so about what you can and cannot do. It's about the willingness for you to see a problem and say, I want to do something about it, in that retrospect. And for me, in my understanding of coming to the thing of the part of being chosen and be called, because I see it as when you are chosen for a certain thing, there's nothing you could do to escape it. We could ask Jonah about it. You can see how that happened, or even so, Simon, who was in a synagogue, who had to wait all that time just to see the our Lord and Savior before he leaves the earth. And a couple other people in the Bible as well. So when we see these people who rise to a certain level and do what they are doing, we as the other people who are looking up to them in that retrospect, we see it as, oh, that's their job. That's what they're supposed to do. That's who they are. This is what they never take into account, that the sacrifice you had to make to do that. For example, how I see it, I make the analogy of Dr. Martin Luther King is, okay, you coming down the road and you see it as an obstacle. There's a bunch of people behind you. And you're like, oh, man, how these people going to get past this obstacle? Maybe I could get behind it and hold it up so these people could get by. And then he does that. But then all these people who come by, seeing him struggling, holding it up, they're just watching him. He's sweating. Oh, bro, thank you, man. We appreciate you. And just keep walking by. Somebody say, oh, you all right? You straight? You need help? All this type of situation. But nobody would sit there and be like, okay, I'll be the her for now and help him hold it up. Everybody just wondering about getting by. And even some of the leaders we see today, most of them want to hold it up, but still want to make it to the other side.
Okay, so how do we quantify that into real-time solution is the dynamic I want to leave the broadcast with, instead of the analogies.
Well, and for me, and that's what I'm giving thanks to you guys, because I come to this truth not on part of y'all, but just to know that we have people who are doing the work. Because sometimes you get to a place, sir, where you just feel like there's nobody understanding. But then you come across, because I just ran across y'all by the God's grace about 6 months ago.
Okay.
And I've been watching the videos ever since. I'm from Florida. I moved up to Jersey, and we were struggling about trying to get video in the studio. I work at the studio of trying to get TV there. And we debated over it, and finally they did. And the first thing that was on the queue for YouTube was you guys. So me saying that is I appreciate the work that you guys are doing, because then, you could be in a place where you're like, okay, I know I'm not lost. I know I'm not crazy. I know I'm not stupid. I know, this loneliness that you feel when other people, your family members are trying to put all those things. That's why I started the thing in that manner, because I do appreciate that, in any manner, in any shape. It don't matter who it is. And if I could learn, if I could gain, if there's some type of benefit in any type of level, it could be anything, I am grateful for it. That's by nature as an African, that's where I held my pride, and I'm grateful y'all talking about the movies. The honor is not there no longer.
Okay. Well, brother, we got to go now. Great points. Thank you, Sam. And you stay plugged in. You've been watching for 6 months. Stay plugged in. I hope you're ready for the ride.
I know.
Right.
And brother, and sir, please, I'm waiting on Elder Gabar. The last time we spoke, I'm trying to connect, and I'm still waiting on. So please, I'm patient.
Okay, well, what I'll do again, I'm going to text him your number. One moment here. Sam, yes, what part of New York?
Yes, sir.
What part of New York?
No, I'm not in New York right now. I'm in Maryland visiting my brother.
In Maryland.
Most likely, yes. I'm here for a while.
Okay,
I might be
your
heading
name
back
is
to
Sam.
Florida.
Okay, hold on.
Correct.
All right, Sam. Elder Gabar will be calling you to get with the congregation in the DMV, okay?
All right, no problem.
My brother. Great calls. All right.
Yes, sir.
Now, before I go, brothers and sisters, I just want to give those Patreon members, first of all, I'd like to thank you all for becoming loyal Patreon. It's the same Patreon, Patreon/AGathering144. If you're having difficulty when it comes to the sound for our Patreon, it's because Patreon isn't like YouTube where you can just go there and immediately I'm here before you, visual and sound with no issue. Because why? I really deal with the consoles from our own desktop here. Okay, when it comes to that. Patreon is a lot different. Even though we are doing things from here, you must do something on your side as a Patreon member to actually hear us. You must hit play and you must unmute the player, okay, to be able to hear. So if you're saying you're having problems on Patreon, it isn't because it isn't working. You have to go there and see it come up and hit. You'll see a line next to the speaker that you have to click to actually hear and see us. You have to hit play and unmute on Patreon. It's different, okay? So I'm just saying that because I don't want y'all to miss it. I'll be going into what some of the doctors are saying out there, the hospitals, and you don't want to miss this, folks. It's crazy. So with that, I'm going to say 1 second here. All right, Sunshine, I'm only going to give you 2 minutes. If you go past 2 minutes, I'm going to have to cut it off, okay? Because I need to eat. You better start now. You're on the clock.
Okay. Shalom, Elder Toy. Oh, okay. Elder, I just wanted to say that you hit the nail on the head. It's indeed our communities that create the greatest dangers for those who want more for our nation as a whole than to wallow at the bottom in the bucket of crabs. And the scripture that comes to the forefront is that we trust in oppression and stay thereon. And any movement or shift that is made in effort to change our status quo, even if we are in a squalor at the base of this world's pyramid construct, is met with fierce and brutal or even fatal opposition. So there's nothing new under the sun, and especially nothing new under the sun when it comes to Israel, as seen with the negatives, the Judas betrayals, the compliance threats against Moses. And our people knew that the Most High chose him in meekness in Israel. And then there's the continual scoffing, envyings, and evil eye, like you mentioned, that we have for one another. It's almost like an operation of in this curse of an internal kind of national kamikaze against one another to seek and kill and destroy, and in reprobate spirit take pleasure in creating mischief and watching and enjoying those in our communities that do the same thing. It seems that in the curse that we dwell in a catch-22 conundrum where we know deep down inside that we're meant for greater things and that we should operate better, but we do in the chaos around us, and it's a lie against us and our purpose and righteousness as righteous judges and light unto the world, and that our behavior keeps us as this proverb and subject to the Gentiles, yet we choose every day to show respect and appreciation for all those we choose every day not to do so. For like Martin Luther King, like you mentioned, in Malcolm X, who attempt to bring positive change to our existence. And neither do we gird up our loins and do things as leaders, taking responsibility for our part, like you mentioned. Instead, we fold into the poverty, violence, and the chaos and the mental hurtings by media and others, and countless delusions and death and multiple levels of iniquities, imagined and unimagined, in this terrible way of operating. And we stay in this warm, comfortable blanket. And in majority, we would not let go of this raggedy old blanket and the wicked habits that we have into a properly clean house and we just continue on this vein. And this is why it's so clear that by grace of the Most High, that the core that Christ said was love your neighbor as yourself, love the Most High with all your heart, mind, and soul. It pertains to the Jews first and also to the Gentile, because we, as the Jews first, the Israelites, we're the ones that would get close enough to one another, to brother and sister, to falsely accuse and to on a daily basis despitefully use one another. And we, as Moses prayed for those who were against him in the wilderness, we have to pray for our nation, because we would continually curse one another, and even especially those chosen to lead in righteousness and sacrifice, and we deeply are affected by the sin of Adam in this way, where we go against our righteous leaders and murmur in complete opposition to our purpose, and it rules as light unto the world. And I just have to say that bless you, elders, because I am so grateful, like others have said, for your continual sacrifice and for your family. And I pray for the blessings of Abraham onto you and all the elders. And this makes me happy in my soul and in pleasure. And I'm thankful and humble by grace of the Most High.
Thank you.
And
Bless
that's all
you.
I wanted to say. Oh, praise the Most High.
Praise the Most High. And may the Most High be with you all. Have a blessed night. And just learn, we all need to learn how to respect and love and honor one another. Why? Because time is something we'll never get back. Just appreciate what the Most High has done, what he's doing in this awakening. With that, I'll see you this Sabbath. I'll see you Patreon members this Friday. This Sabbath, we're going to be going into a great lesson. That's right. Let me see. Socially rich yet spiritually poor will be our Sabbath lesson. Hope to see you there. We're going to go from 12 noon to 2 p.m. And I hope to see you all in the Hebrew and Bible Academy February the 6th. That's right. Stay prayed up, sin not. We will soon see Zion. And guess what, folks? Keep in mind, they're lying to you. Keep in mind, again, they're lying to you. Shalom.
You think you can lie to me? I see it's written all over your face. Scientific intricity. You created out in space. Oh yeah. You can do what you wanna do.
Thank you for using Blog Talk Radio.
You can think how you wanna think now, but you can't stop us. The truth is rising.
like electrical currents, so current leaving you paralyzed. And this truth is so amplified while your ego's reduced in size. We a menace to your society, taking your kingdom violently. Bring a paddle to the battle, we can be in the valley of an alley with the battle, it's a battle of tonic. And the gun will be done, you can think of Messiah. I run the race until I finish her. Higher power giving me the ability. Chosen people with no other one mystery. We won't stop.
You think I can't see? Hey, what you doing to me? Yo, you cannot defeat me. My hand on your heel, I'm pulling through. A step ahead of you. You think that I can't see? You know your power's with me. Your power's with me.
Oh, come on.
Mixed dream and a dream don't touch, I've been taking up. Being shown in a vision, curiosity got me stuck. Yeah, 7 hands, 10 horns on the waters, raising up, raising up. I see crowds, flaming floors. Is it a war at the door? I've been searching for it. I can't get it out of my head. I see the stars are falling down. There's tempers upon my bed. The change goes on and on. I'm not giving it up. 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 I'm at the point understanding dreams are the real time. Please nobody wake me up. I try moving on, but my body is stuck. My conscience is raised, an angel pick me up. Awaken from this matrix. Looking down on the globe, blood dripping from his robe. I know he can fix this. I see you burning Rome, and our people coming home. Can I please get a witness? Witness, I'm not coming down till I get this. These predictions can't be superstition. The decision being shown in the vision. It just ended. Yeah, I can't get it out of my head. I see the stars are falling down. There's tempers upon my bed. The chase goes on and on. I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it up. Ooh, I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it up. No, I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it up. I can't stop these visions haunting me. It's not a dream. It's something lying between our dreams and reality. Called prophecy. Oh Lord, I've been searching for it. I can't get it out of my head. Don't wake me up, no. The stars are falling down. There's tempers upon my bed. Don't wake me up. The chase goes on and on. I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it up. Ooh, I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it up. No, I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it up. I'm not giving it up.
Oh yeah. Whoa.
see his fame and glory. Following me, dug in behind trees, inquiring to harm me. I may not be right in your eyes, I've only come to realize I am your life. Now it's time I draw the line and tell my side against what's been publicized.
Stop blaming us.
You're full of hypocrisy. Bring down those you can't control, yet ignore those who are worse than me. Does one mistake turn me a villain? See, there's abuse one can see, like the scars you left in turn. Now it's time I draw the line and tell my side against what's been publicized.
Come on. Stop lying on us. You're Jew. You say I'm the villain. I know you're in there. Open up, I'm not the villain. I don't know what you want from me. I never thought my life would be this way. Just follow me every day. I can't even go outside. I'm broken, actually scared alive. For one story, you're still alive. Don't know how it feels on this side. Ooh, by the way, every day treat me like I'm not ordinary. Get alive. Won't you live your life, and I will live mine. Ooh, what you looking for? Ooh, feeling. The villain. Oh yeah. I'm at a fork in the road. Which way should I go? That is one of my favorite songs right here. Oh, yeah. I was on my way.
I was on my way, felt the presence of your son every day. Every day, I let go of your hand, and now I feel a change. Oh. Close the door, fall to my knees, and I began to pray. Lord, help me, the cares of the world slowly pulling me away. Now I hear a voice calling me to the light, Still in the heart, so I'll discern wrong from right. I'm at a fork in the road. Which way should I go? My Father sent His Spirit, help me find, save me. Bible fell on the floor and open to the Lord, and I can't believe what I saw. I saw me sinning willfully. I won't break your law no more. Send your sons, open the door back to me. Oh Father, please forgive me. Save me, calling me to the light. Still in my heart, so I know wrong from right. Let a fork in the road. Which way should I go? My Father's in His Spirit, help me find, save me. Oh, higher, shine down on me, shine down. One of your sons of Jacob, Lord, I believe. Oh, guide me, please send me to the light. Send your son so I will know wrong from right. I'm at a fork in the road. Which way do I go? My Father, send your Spirit, help me find. Save me. Voice calling me to the light. From the heart, so I know wrong from right. I'm at a fork in the road. Which way should I go? Oh, my heart is in your Son, make me right. Help me find, save me.
Okay, this is where you can actually get the music.
Come save me.